The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
The top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special episode of the Industry of Comics. I'm here with my OG, the one and only Dennis Barger from Wonderworld Comics. Jesse wasn't able to make it today. Shout out to our boy Jesse. Make sure you guys go show him some love on eBay Live. I'm sure he's selling sometime later tonight. But we have a very special show tonight, one that I'm excited about. Dennis, why don't you introduce our guest?
Well, I've been watching him for a couple years now, and about 2 years ago, thanks to Whatnot, how about the chat loves hearing me say that, but thanks to Whatnot, I spotted him at Fan Expo Texas in Dallas. I saw him and Quarter Black Garrett walking through the crowd. I stopped my live stream and I started screaming, "Gary from Nerdrotic, Quarter Black Garrett, get over here." And we kind of hit it off, hung out with him that night. And every time we see each other, we just kind of talk bullshit about comic retailing and where he was and that. And I said, hey, we're doing the industry show. There's nobody we need on this show better than probably one of the most famous comic book retailers of all times. And he wants to get back into it. So let's get him back into it and let's bring him on the show.
Gary, how's it going, brother?
How's it going? I'm not the most famous comic retailer of all time.
Name me one that's more famous.
We were talking about that. Probably Chuck Rosansky, but like if you go to a normie, nobody would know. But nobody would know much about comics. But probably Chuck Rosansky. I would say not for the best reasons in the world. Brian Hibbs, not for the best reasons in the world.
I want to get into that.
Yeah. James Sim from Isotope. He's cool. He's a good dude. Very good dude. Joe Field, very good dude. From Flying Colors, made up Free Comic Book Day. But yeah, there's no like Gary Arlington from back in the day, arguably the first comic shop in America.
The guy from Torpedo, the famous drummer.
John. John.
Yeah,
I can't remember his last name.
Yeah,
from System of a Down. We have met a couple times. We've DM'd a couple of times. And I've actually met him. I met him with Stan Lee many years ago.
Fabulous.
But he's cool. He's very cool. But like, yeah, there's no like Stan Lee of comic shops. You know, there's which I guess it was always kind of missing. It was Dolman. Thank you, Mrs. Nerdrotic.
Yes.
I didn't want to say it wrong. Yeah. It's best not to say it if you're going to say it wrong.
I'm with you. You know how many times I have to say, I'm so sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Please let me know how to say it right when I'm talking about comic creators and stuff. And Dennis recently told me how to say Marco Cacchetto, not Cicchetto. So I do say Cacchetto right. But I'm with you all the time. It's better just to say John from Torpedo or John from System of a Down than mess up his name.
Right. But we're going to get your name right tonight, Gary Buechler.
There you go. And Torpedo Comics in Vegas is good. It's like legit. Yeah. Go check it out.
Yes. All right. So we start the show off with our guests with a simple question. And it's one of the best questions that we ask. And that is, other than selling comic books, what is a comic book store to you?
Other than selling comic books? Like what do I see as a comic store, as a legit comic store? I'm pretty hardcore on this one. It has to sell comic books. It has to sell back issues. So other than that, toys, games is fine. I think games is fine. Merch, little t-shirt here and there. That's absolutely comic book related.
Yeah.
If you have the square footage, you do some gaming there. Absolutely. That's a comic shop. I'm not big on all the other shit at all. Like
when you were a kid and you went into the first time into the comic shop, what was it like? What do you remember about going into the shop as a kid before you owned one or when you were a teenager?
Well, when I was a kid, comic shops were pretty new, right? So, we were just talking about Gary Arlington, arguably owned the first comic shop, San Francisco Comics. Now, I know that there's people in New York who think differently. I don't know what the dates are. You guys can argue it amongst yourselves. But the lore in San Francisco is Gary Arlington San Francisco Comics was the first real comic shop. And they all looked like that. They were kind of a mess. We're talking early 70s to early 80s. It got better as it went on. Like the first one I shopped at was called Professor X Comics in Oceanside, California. And comic shops in my day were near military bases.
Yep.
Or in downtown next to porn shops. That's where most of them were.
Yeah.
So, and we, San Diego had they had a comic shop. They had San Diego Comics downtown near a porn shop. And then we had Professor X's near right next to the Cornet newsstand. And when I walked in there, it was like heaven. Like I walked into, I'm like, I'm at home. This is where I belong. This is where I need to be. That's how I felt when I first opened a comic book. Like it just spoke to me. It wasn't just some dumb little thing that you kind of read to kill your time. Like the minute I opened one, I went, it's like music played. Right. And I'll never forget Professor X's comics didn't like last very long. But I went there all the time, got to know the owner. My wife, did I just say wife? My mom would leave me there. Same thing. Been a lot of streaming today. Okay. My mom would leave me there for a lot, she'd like just hang out for a couple hours. The guy didn't mind, I didn't cause any trouble. And, I'd be in there. I made sure to buy some stuff and then he let me read some stuff. Right. And it was absolute heaven. What did they look like? It was all back issues. That's all it was. So
wonderful.
there was no diamond or anything. It was all back issues, all this guy's personal collection that he bought 2 of or whatever, mostly from next door, the Cornet newsstand, and built up this collection from the early 60s. And so it was 1980 or 81. Looked at a Fantastic Four 1. I'm going off my memory. Let's just say it's a VG, $100. $100. And my mom wouldn't give me $100. I'm like, I'll do anything, man. I'll take out the trash. I'll wash the dishes forever. She's like, no. So she's too old now. I can't make her feel bad. Like,
of course.
Especially when I had to buy one later for thousands. And I'm like, well, could have had it for $100, but thanks, Mom. Whatever. Yeah. That's all it was. It was just back issues. That's what they were back in the day. And they were kind of
my origin story was I used to buy from spinny racks at gas stations and grocery stores. And I saw a movie called The Lost Boys. And I saw a thing called a comic book store, which I later found out was Joe Ferreira's Atlantis Fantasy World in Santa Cruz.
Fantasy World is still there.
Yeah. And later I would become friends with Joe Ferreira and I would tell him this. And I was like, I didn't know there was a thing called a comic book store. I never knew to open the yellow pages to look for something called a comic book store. But that was, I think, the first kind of mainstream acknowledgement that there's a place called a comic book store. 1987, Lost Boys.
Yeah, I maybe there was one earlier, but like seeing a comic book store in a movie was, remember when if somebody was wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt in a TV show, people would watch it because that was the only way we get any color. Remember it was news when I'm blanking on it. Charlie's Angels. Why am I blanking on her name?
Farrah Fawcett.
Farrah Fawcett.
No, the blonde one from the movie.
Oh, Drew Barrymore.
Oh, no. You're talking about Carmen Electra in the underwear.
Not Carmen Electra. Why am I blanking on her name?
Carmen Diaz.
Diaz.
Yeah.
She had Spider-Man on the back of her underwear, and that was a big fucking deal.
Yep.
That was much later, but like when comic book shops would show up in TV shows like they did for Angel, that was still like much later, but seeing it in the 80s was crazy. And I had I bought my first comic from a 7-Eleven. So yes, it was supermarkets. It was Good Sam locations. My dad was part of the Good Sam Club, and we'd travel around and like there'd be like KOAs and stuff, and we get the Charlton 3-packs. But yeah, the first comic I bought was off a spinner rack in a 7-Eleven on Rancho Santa Fe Road. 7-Eleven's still there, does not sell comics anymore. It was Marvel Team Up 42.
Awesome.
I'll never forget it. Yeah.
Awesome. That was going to be our next question, of course. And that's see right there. That's what we love, because when you talked about that and you said I'll never forget it. You could see the excitement whenever you talk about that to somebody that's a comic fan and they remember that being a kid and their first comic and their comic store and how it felt going in. That's what we love. And I think that nostalgia, that I guess dopamine, I guess they call it, that nostalgia brings. I like to say that nostalgia is one of the most dangerous drugs out there, even more dangerous than the crazy ones, because it could cause you to lose all your money and not even
all your money.
Yeah. So, but that brings me to the next part of the story. Growing up, when did you get out of comics? I mean, did you stay in through it like all those years in teenagers and your early 20s? Like, what was that story?
It built up slowly over time. So I never really got out of it. I wasn't serious collecting as a teenager, because I was broke. But I had my first, let's just say my first long box by the time I was 9 years old, right? And just built on it there. So there wasn't the whole like Wednesday thing in the early 80s. We got our new comics. I couldn't even tell you how we knew what day it was.
Friday.
It was, so I'd go on Saturday. Saturday, my mom would take me to the Coronet newsstand to get the new stuff, right? In Oceanside. And that wasn't like the easiest trip, but she would take me every other Saturday. I'd get my stuff. And I bought some of the coolest comics you could possibly imagine off the shelf the week they came out. Death of Captain Marvel, all the Frank Miller stuff, all the Claremont Byrne X-Men, buying the Teen Titans X-Men crossover, Darkseid, Dark Phoenix. Like I remember from the Coronet newsstand. And then I go back and try to use my paperboy money to buy a little bit of what I'm missing. And basically, I'd save up to get the Fireside Origins. That's how I read the Origins. So I got the Marvel's Origins, Son of Origins.
Those books are still the greatest books ever.
Oh my God, those covers.
They were in every library, bookstore, everything.
Yeah.
Bring on the bad guys.
Bring on the bad guys. The women of the Marvel women. Like all those were the first trades, and it was great. It was great, and I could catch up on that stuff, and then pretty much my friends had to tell me everything else, like all the other stuff I missed. We would trade comics. I know this is probably something that's lost on a lot of people, but yeah, you would, like, you traded baseball cards, you traded comics. You're like, I've read this one, here, let's trade. And that's how I and you just learn stuff through osmosis. And eventually, like, the Wednesday comic thing came around, but I grew up in Encinitas, so Thrill Books popped up. And that was there for years. Thrill Books was great. So Thrill Books is where I got Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, all that whole area. That was all in the 80s. And I was there every day for a long time, like in some form or another, morning and the afternoon, between my partying, I managed to, like, my idea, like, the guy's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I'm going to the comic shop. Screw it.
So
got
even
really
during
high
that,
and read comic books.
even during that phase, you were still collecting or going into the comic store, because a lot of people, even like myself, I got into that phase in my life, and everything else was put aside. It was nothing but drugs, and how can I get drugs, and where can I get the drugs? I sold all my comics. I know a lot of people have that story of selling their comics, not for drugs, but a lot of us do. We have that story of selling our comics. But you say you were still kind of at it even during that phase. Yeah,
I was cycling through, and the concept of, like, I was too busy selling all my, like, records and CDs and instruments and stuff. Like, comics were kind of small potatoes. If it was desperation, yes, but I always had boxes of comics, and I wasn't always buying them, so I never stole them from the comic store, for one, because the guy would kill me. And
it was sacred.
Mike, I can't remember his last name. Owner's name was Mike, was a comic book legend, was a scary dude. And then, but like the grocery stores, it was easy peasy. So I kept reading even when I didn't have a place to live. So I'd have awesome. Sacrilege. I have them rolled up in like a trench coat or something like that, just so I can read them. Yeah. But I never got out of the habit ever. Anytime
that's cool.
Anything close to a superhero movie came out, even back in the 80s, went and checked it out. And I always stayed in tune with my nerdness, even when I was like homeless, completely drugged out, cooking meth under a bridge, all that crazy shit. So,
well, let's get into that part.
You mentioned like in the 80s. I remember one Thanksgiving, I had to like negotiate to get to Thanksgiving early and take the family VCR to my grandfather's house to plug in, because he had TBS, and TBS would run a Spider-Man marathon on Thanksgiving. And I wanted to record those old, is it Nathan Hammond? The so. Spider-Man. And I was like, I still have that VHS copy with all of the Spider-Man movies.
Nicholas Hammond.
Nicholas Hammond.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that show was great.
And that was it. Name something at that point in time that was as good as those. Nothing.
No, because like the only superhero show that was regular before that was Wonder Woman, right? Yeah. So Wonder Woman, which we watched.
Yeah.
But then
got us through puberty.
Those specials came out, the Doctor Strange TV movie and Spider-Man and Hulk. And the Doctor Strange one didn't get picked up, obviously. Hulk was the biggest hit.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man was awesome.
Yeah.
One, Nicholas Hammond looked like Peter Parker.
He did.
He looked like Romita's, like an older version of Romita's Peter Parker. I love that show. I was still bummed when it was canceled.
I think we were talking.
I'm still bummed they didn't figure out a way to pull him in to Spider-Man No Way Home.
No Way Home. They probably didn't think of it because they're stupid.
I hope he's still alive. maybe
he is.
Okay.
I follow him on Instagram.
He looks good.
Yeah, they should have had him on there. That's a bummer. That would have been such a nostalgia hit.
And Lord of Brooklyn's in the chat. I remember when comic book conventions and the bootleggers at comic book conventions started up. I bought Leah Pardon Japanese Spider-Man series on VHS, all bootleg, from a Comic-Con in 1991 or 2. And I wore that thing out because, it was just amazing.
Yeah, I know a lot of people got big on that too because it looked like they were trying to bring that back in at some point. So, which would have been super cool. All right, so
tell us about at what point did you say I'm going to put my brick and mortar down? I am going to open a comic book store because that's the end all be all of the long box warrior. What was the motivation to get you to open the store?
Well, hey, what's up, Gotham City Comics? What's up? How's it going? It's glad to see you guys still around. Okay. It was there was no plan in it at all. So I was working my blue collar parts job. I was happy with it. It was fine. I was working in Oakland, so it kind of sucked. That part sucked, driving to Oakland every day from San Francisco. And I'm on a lunch break. I'm reading this old thing called the newspaper. And I'm
kids out there, newspaper was something that we got news from.
It was internet on paper. All right. So I was going through the classifieds looking for comics to sell. It's just bored. So I'm like, let's see if anybody's got a comic collection. I'm always looking. And there was a huge comic collection in there, like a massive one. And it wasn't, it was all like mid-range 80s, 90s, but it was a shitload of them. I'm like, if I buy these and I sit on them for a decade or two, I could probably open a shop in retirement and they'll be actually worth something in a decade or two. And there was some Bronze Age stuff, which at that time was still early on, still worth a few bucks, but not much. But I knew like it was on the precipice of popping up. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, let's buy this. So I called Mrs. Nerdrotic. I'm like, yeah, it was, I can't even remember, Melissa. What was it? $5,000, like less than $5,000. And it was a garage full of comics, like fucking. I was hurt at the time. Melissa had to do most of the lifting into the U-Haul. It filled a big U-Haul truck. That's how many comics. And I never even got through them in my 10 years. I never got through them. They ended up in my basement for my store, but I digress. Got to talking to the guy who was selling them, and he's all, hey, if you're interested in buying so I told him, I'm like, in retirement, I want to do this. Like we're talking decades, 2 decades. He's like, well, you know what? There's a guy selling a shop right now. And I think it's the shop you go to. And I'm all, really? And it was called the Comic and Card Outpost. And it was Russ Quadra. And I'm like, all right, I'll go talk to him. What the hell? So Melissa's like, yeah, you should do it. I'm like, really? Yeah, you should do it. I'm like, all right, well, I had some money. My father passed away and I had some inheritance money. So I'm like, all right, I'll talk to him. So we talked. We had some pizza at West Portal. Struck a deal. I probably overpaid a little bit, and I took it over within weeks. As a matter of fact, my first week, I had to pay the owner to work for me for a week because we had already planned a trip to Hawaii. So technically, my first week open, I took a vacation. I was gone, and then we came back, and I had no fucking idea what I was doing. But it wasn't like I'm gonna do this. It was like within a month, this was not entered my mind at all. Within a month, I had owned a comic shop. That's kind of how I operate shit a lot, by the way.
I'm like that too. Jumping on it
first,
quickly.
look for the landing. Look for the landing second.
Yeah. And figured it out along the way. Had a lot of help. At first, Brian Hibbs was pretty helpful. James Sim was helpful. There was people who were helpful. The weirdest thing was we had a drop in San Francisco. So like UPS didn't come to our store. We had a drop at Brian's shop, of course.
Oh,
so he got a little. He
negotiated that. He negotiated that.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Well, that's what I was gonna. You know what? And we'll bring it up now because I was going to talk about it on another show. A lot of the people who don't know, UPS is really lazy, and Diamond doesn't pay for the extra bells and whistles for delivery. So every UPS drop center is where all the retailers have to go to pick their books up on at that time, Wednesday mornings. And you've got to get them in and out. So we're all there at 9 a.m. when it opens. So if you have a beef with another shop owner, you're literally going to see him every week at 9 in the morning without coffee. You know, it's the most awkward thing ever.
Yeah, but you know what's cool about that?
You're all forced to.
At least you're forced to, at some point, be like to work it out, or
it did. I'll tell you what, it does lower a lot of beefs. But
now with social media, that shit never happens. It's always rah, rah, rah.
And you guys probably know in the chat here, but if there's anybody new, most shop owners have fucking beefs. It's pretty incredible that like in San Francisco, we didn't really have any beefs. Like even with awesome. Brian was frustrating, but like we didn't have beef, you know, like we were completely different shops. That's probably part of it, that we were completely different shops. So we can go, hey, if you're an indie guy, you should go check out, you know, Leaf's shop, or James, you know, James's shop. You know, they're the artsy fartsy shops. I'm not that. I will never be that. So
what type of shop was it?
My shop was a pure, in my opinion, the purest comic shop you could possibly have. Because the toys were comic related, the merchandise was comic related, and all it had was comic books.
I call those a 1 degree of separation from comic books.
Yeah.
What, trades?
Toys?
No. Everything has to be 1 degree.
Everything has to be absolutely related. Yeah. You know, I'd have Doctor Who stuff in there, but there's Doctor Who comics, there's Doctor Who books.
Yeah,
definitely fell into that. And like if Star Wars stuff was there, but like the video games that I had in there, the arcade games were comic.
Yep.
Not an inch of space was not covered with at first what I could afford was banners and posters, got rid of all those and started covering the walls with comics, and eventually I had high ceilings. I had full runs. I had X-Men 1 through 500 on display in my store. Uncanny X-Men.
Wow.
I had Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 500 on display in my store. Avengers 1 through 400, I think at the time. It just wrapped around my store, and I wasn't worried about security because nobody could reach them. Right. So, I wanted, my whole thing was, and Melissa will remember this. I was in Vegas. I took a cab. This was back in the day. If you went off the strip in Vegas in a cab, good luck getting back. You're waiting hours.
Yeah.
Hours before you Uber. So we took a cab to a comic shop, and it was a newsstand. It was a fucking newsstand. And I'm like, okay, we spent 5 minutes in there, waited 2 hours for a cab. And I'm like, I don't want my shop to be like that. There's no way in hell my shop's going to be like that. So I'm going to make it worth the experience, whether you buy something or not. And that's what these walls are inspired from all my comic shops.
Yeah, I was just going to say, looking at your back wall, it's hard to believe you left a square inch uncovered.
I know, right?
That's a cool part, though. That's the fun part, being able to not leave a square inch uncovered, you know?
Yeah.
No, it becomes your personal piece of art, right?
Well, and we talk about this. A comic book store has to be broken down per square inch of how much are you making from it? How much are you dedicating to it? And there are so many of these stores that just leave so much uncovered, untouched, filled with product. And
That's
guess
awesome.
what? I usually am pointing it out in a, hey guys, I'm sorry, we're going to close here at the beginning of next month. And I'm like, why is that wall empty? Why is that wall empty? Where are your comic books? And it's just like, oh, well, you clearly didn't dedicate to it.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's hard to walk into a comic book store and see more than, 20 short boxes or long boxes full of back issues. It used to be, 100, 200 more. I remember, I tell the story all the time. There was a store here in Phoenix called All About Books and Comics that was so big, it had a store next to it for all its cheaper books. And there must have been thousands of boxes of back issues in the store. It was massive. And we would, I remember my parents would be like, okay, you can go there once a month. You pick the weekend and we'll try to get you there once a month. But that's because it was downtown. It was far away. And I would spend so much time in there. I remember the first book I ever bought from a back issue bin was at that store. It was the Magneto on trial issue, Uncanny X-Men. And I just, there's something about going through those old back issue bins that made me be like, okay, this is a comic book store. And there isn't many comic book stores that have that many back issue bins anymore. It's very interesting.
They don't. Weird. And there's a good one here, but the back issue bin it's okay, but you could tell they keep their good stuff in the back. And that maybe that's the way of the world now.
Yeah.
Which I can't, in San Francisco, I couldn't keep any of my back issues out. At all. Even I was in kind of a nice neighborhood. I was next to the tanning salon, under the dentist. The dentist was upstairs, and then the mansions of St. Francis Wood across the street. So, but still,
well, we're coming up on the 4th anniversary of COVID, and I remember my early posts were, "Hey, retailers, you need to start stashing the stuff from the stores." They started breaking into stores, doing smash and grabs. And I think we were at 5 or 6 just by May of serious smash and grabs during COVID. And, these retailers just were leaving the stuff on the wall just as they closed the stores down. And it's just
No, yeah. Now you have to have some kind of bulletproof glass case or something. It would be so expensive. So I used towards the end, I put dummies up. I just if I had an AF-15, I would put a dummy up.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have that on the wall, but it makes you a massive target.
Actually, a buddy who's usually in the chat, Galaxy Comics in Saginaw, Michigan, he has all of these gorgeous CGC books that he got from an amazing collection, and he has color copies on the wall to represent them.
Absolutely.
You have to.
And that sucks. It totally sucks. But yes, you're right, Lord of Brooklyn. The zombie apocalypse is great in San Francisco, although the zombie apocalypse is San Francisco now.
Yes.
It is San Francisco.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I got to be honest. I went to Emerald City Comic Con 2 years ago, and it was almost just as bad. So that being said,
I don't know if you remember, Seattle used to be a clean city, a beautiful, clean city.
It was my favorite place in the world.
Emerald City on the hill?
Yes.
Yeah. My uncle, growing up, my uncle had a place in Friday Harbor up in the Sound up there, and we would go to Seattle and the Sound every summer. It was my favorite place in the world. And when I went back for the Emerald City Comic Con, the whole place smelled like urine. The whole city smelled like urine. There was people during the convention. The streets were full of everybody, like San Diego or not Baltimore, but San Diego when everybody's out going to the convention. There's families, everything. There's guys standing in circles, passing around the foil with the the pills, smoking heroin on the street. Cops right there. Kids are having to have their dads are having to put their hands. It was ridiculous.
San Diego's getting that bad too. Downtown San Diego. I don't know if you guys even go. Do you go?
We were there for San Diego last year. Yeah,
last year.
Oh, we ran into you. Yeah.
Hey, it's funny. We did run into you, and you were talking about the whatnot Wi-Fi, but they had enough money to rent out that entire effing building across the street.
Yeah,
but they didn't have enough money for Wi-Fi. That's funny. That's hilarious.
It's all show for them. It's all show for them.
It was a big show, and they talked a lot of bullshit. But
yes.
Yeah, San Diego looked terrible. like utterly terrible. I grew up there. I remember when San Diego was bad in the 80s and they cleaned it all up. It used to be like, honestly,
Comic-Con's money cleaned it all up.
The hookers were more respectable than what they have now, but there was lots of hookers down there back in the 80s. But then they cleaned it up, and Comic-Con had something to do with a big part of that. I'll never forget this. Comic-Con was a local thing, guys. You remember that. It was a local San Diego thing that most San Diegans had no idea was going on. And I remember distinctly, Melissa was with me because it wasn't until it started catching on in the 90s, right? But it really started blowing up in the 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
And we went to a restaurant in Mission Valley, and one of the host said, "Oh, it's Comic-Con week," and that's the first time I've heard anybody outside of Comic-Con ever acknowledge it in San Diego. I'm like, really? You know about Comic-Con? And he's all, yeah. And it's like a week, and it's like a big deal here. And they're all, yeah, wow, that's interesting. That's new. Because I've been going for years, and like other than the banners you'd see, and before it was at the convention center, I was going before the convention center, and nobody gave a shit. So this became this phenomenon. Unfortunately, it's nothing what it used to be. Last year was good. There was no Hollywood. There was no Hollywood. And I had a great time.
Yep.
It was about comic books again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. Last year was a lot of fun. I went the year before also, and that wasn't too bad, but we were still on the brink of like the whole COVID thing, so it was a little weird. But last year was
San Diego was 2001, I think. And that's when people started
acknowledging it. right around then.
I remember Hollywood for chump change, Hollywood would take a giant footprint. So whatever year the Time Machine came out, the one with Stan Winston.
I remember.
They had that giant obelisk.
Time Machine in there. It was awesome.
I was right next to them at a booth that was selling little Star Wars action figure displays. And I used to be a booking agent for celebrities. So they hired a bunch of my celebrities to come and sign autographs during the show. And I would just walk when I'd go out to go have a smoke break. I see this guy sitting at a card table in this giant obelisk of space, and it's Stan Winston, and no one is there. I got to walk up and talk to Stan Winston for 30 minutes. And then I'm just like, why would Hollywood waste all of this money? And right across from there, if you remember, the original Batmobile was right across from there on the wall. Everybody's walking past it. It was still about comic books in 2001 or whenever that was.
Yeah.
But Hollywood was creeping in. The Lucas Pavilion took over more and more space.
Well, Twilight ruined everything. Yeah. Twilight screwed everything up. Everything up. And that's like, I know that was a meme, but it's absolutely true. It started the lines. It brought the fire marshal in because those lines from Twilight brought the fire marshal in. They capped the fucking tickets. And all of a sudden you couldn't get you used to be able to walk up at Comic-Con. You'd wait in a stupid line, but you get tickets and you get in.
The Sunday of Twilight Sunday, whatever that year was, all of the townies could go in and get a reduced fare to go into Comic-Con on the last day.
Yep.
But all the Twilight people took all of those passes, and they had 0 passes for the townies. And that's when the townies got really pissed. Because I used to go to all the restaurants. I tip the hell out of everybody. All the people that I knew for years always knew me. And they're like, "Hey, Dennis, can you get us tickets?" And I'm like, there's nothing I can do.
It used to be easy. And now you could have a retailer booth and you can pay for a couple extra, but they haven't really, they tried to stop pass swapping. They can't stop it. You can't stop the pass swapping. And once you're in, nobody looks at your damn pass.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, you still can do that, but
I think standing in the line is the worst though. You brought up standing in the line. I said last year, I go, I am not standing in any lines. I don't care how bad I want something. Because you stand in a line and you waste hours standing in line. I'm not here to stand in line. I'm here to enjoy myself.
No, if you really want that exclusive that bad, I'll pay the extra $50 on eBay to not stand in line.
Well, last year was my daughter's first San Diego. Her first one was supposed to be COVID, but it got canceled and we moved it and blah, blah, blah. So last year was her first one. And she really wanted to go see Shinzo Ito, who is like this Japanese manga artist. And they had the line started at 6 a.m. They were going to pass out the tickets at 9 a.m. Show opens at 10. all the passes were gone by 9:05. And she did that every morning for 2 mornings just to get it. And I'm like, well, sweetie, you learned your lesson. She goes, yeah, this is a bullshit. They need to figure out a better way to do it. And I'm like, sweetie, that's what we've been saying about Comic-Con for 20 fucking years.
You know who had the best way to do it? The best way to do it I've ever seen was, God rest his soul, the late, great George Perez. He used to give tickets, and he would say, and this blew me away, because he would do sketches for anybody that came up. It was free. He just asked you to put a $5 bill in the Heroes Fund thing. And instead of standing in line, he would give you a ticket, and he would say, come back, go walk around, and come back. And if the first person in line is after your number, you get to be second, and you can jump in the line, whatever your number is on the ticket. And that worked great. I don't understand why they don't do that at some form or fashion. It would be great.
There's too many rules now with it, and it's so regulated, and because it got too big, it's not even nonprofit anymore. Technically it's not nonprofit anymore. But what would surprise a lot of people is, for the longest time, Comic-Con was run by 12 people. 12 people, and half of them were volunteers. So for so long, and something to get that big.
Something I've been wanting to talk to you about, and you really come close to talking about this, but I don't think you've ever hit on this. And it's an idea that I came up with 20 years ago called the S&Ms of fandom. There is so much of an S&M quality to the way the people in power treat the people in fandom, and the fandom allows it to be treated to them almost like a sadomasochistic relationship. And you just know
industry is a self-loathing industry.
It is. And you just like that South Park skit with the cable operators. They're just somebody going, oh yeah.
It's
clip that. You had to wait in line for 5 hours.
So retailers we're not necessarily businessmen. A lot of us were just collectors who, are trying not to do our own stash. Very much. There are some businessmen there. There's some very smart ones. But the comic industry is a collection of artists. Most artists spend a lot of time by themselves in solitude. Not very good persons. And when they get around people, they have anxiety, they have depression issues. There's autism. There's all the entire spectrum, for lack of a better term. And when they get around crowds, they get crazy. When they get a little bit of accolades, some people withdraw. Some people turn into Mark Waid. And they're just fucking crazy. They're just insane. And there's so much insanity in arts anyway. It gets hidden in Hollywood a lot. It doesn't get hidden in the comic book industry.
Well, you bring up a good point. I want to talk to you about this, because this is the only time that I've publicly disagreed with you on a stance. And it's because of Mark Waid that I took the stance I took. I was absolutely against day and date digital. And you took the stance of supporting it. And my whole
I wasn't worried about it.
Well,
and I still am not.
No, I understand.
Shouldn't be.
Absolutely. But I said we need to draw a line in the sand that the movie theaters drew, which is, we will not, if you go day and date, if you try to, circumvent the movie theater model, we are going to do certain stuff to your movies. And I said, that's what the comic retailers have to do. Now, we didn't lose anything, but we didn't gain the momentum on a lot of the books that we probably should have because of digital. And it's one of the issues that we're going to be diving into very soon about the online piracy of comic books, which is in the hundreds of thousands of readers, probably more than are actually reading physical books. But yeah, Mark Waid took a very hard, I am going to pioneer the digital comic book, and I am going to put retailers out of business, because he did an interview with a comic book retailer named Adam Freeman. And he said, do you remember this? This was big controversy.
Yes.
I think this industry is being held hostage by 1,500 retailers. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I think he was off his fucking meds, because didn't he have like a minority stake in a comic shop?
Well, no, he did. He got that later. He got that later.
Yeah.
After his digital comic empire, he sold all of his physical back issues to put it all into digital comics. And after that failed, he then bought a stake in a comic book store in Muncie, Indiana.
Yep.
And that comic book store, he ended up breaking up with the owner and went back
again.
to Hollywood.
There's that 40-year-old baby syndrome that happens in comic books. That nobody can get. A lot of people can't get along because of what you said, Gary. A lot of these people that are that were nerds growing up. We kind of, for the most part, we're kind of nerds. We're like that for a reason. There's something.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are, and it's great. And you know what? One of the greatest things I learned behind the counter was patience.
Oh, yeah.
I learned patience. I learned patience with my customers. I let them talk. I gave them their time because
that's the best.
It was the first time in my life I saw the value of like, these people are working their ass off. This is their reward.
Yes.
They chose my store. That is an
Yes.
honor. That is a privilege. They need to be treated like fucking royalty because they are.
Yeah.
And I think that was a lot of stuff I noticed at other comic shops. Somebody have their head behind a fucking comic, and like, I encourage my people to read, but as soon as somebody walks in, you put that comic down, you say hello to them soon as they walk in the door. For one, it helps with theft, but most importantly, they're acknowledged. Don't bug them. Don't fucking hover over them. Let them do their thing. If it takes a minute, ask a question. It's real easy stuff. Customer service is the most important thing, and I think that got lost.
Big
Where
time.
I was at the retailer summits. I was there when digital started. The only thing I hated about digital was those fucking stickers at the back of every comic book that made everything stick out like that and jacked them all up. That was the only thing I hated about digital. I was never, ever worried about digital.
Well, there was one comic retailer summit where I had to, and I forget his name, but it's the son of Michael Uzlan. Gets up on stage at San Diego and he's like, "Hey, I'm the representative that's going to bring Apple downloads to Diamond comic books." And I just stood up and I'm just like, "Hey, are you going to put it in writing right now that you're not going to collect the data of any of our customers?"
Right. Which they wouldn't do. What about Amazon? What about fucking Amazon sending people into retail stores to fucking scan our thing that's where I drew the line. I'm like,
yep,
no phones out, no scanning anything.
Yep.
Explain that.
If you want to take a picture of something, that's fine.
Explain that, because Amazon, I don't know what that is. That's interesting. That
happened help me in chat, 2010, 2011.
2011, because DC announced it. It was September of 2011. I called it the Comixology Terms of Surrender. If you wanted to sell digital comic books in your store, you had to have a giant Comixology sign. It had to be as big as the biggest sign in your store. You had to do this, this, and this, and you got 25 cents from the customer for every one of them that you sent their way.
Well, this wasn't just comic stores. This was every small business. Yeah. Amazon was like, "Hey, go scan their barcode and we'll match the price and do you better on that product." And I'm like, fuck that. Don't bring your phone out in my store. Like, if you want to take a picture, ask me. But if I see anybody scanning anything, you're out of here, man. Goodbye.
Yeah.
That's the only time I drew the line. Fuck Amazon.
Yeah.
But with digital, I just knew that comics are a tactile experience. You need to touch that stuff. I'm like, digital will never, ever in a million years take over the industry. And piracy, I might have a controversial take on piracy.
I
don't give a shit.
That. Yeah,
I don't give it. I think piracy takes up where I think the problem was always Diamond, always will be Diamond, always will be one distributor. I know it's easier. It was very convenient, but the first thing I noticed when I got there is like, this is a controlled market. It's a 100% controlled market, which means, and nobody wants to compete with Diamond. That's the most important part, is nobody has the desire to compete with Diamond, which means this is all fake and this is all going to fall apart. And all the comic store owners were like, we got to be exclusive. We can't have shit in 7-Eleven. Fuck that. I would sell comics to the 7-Eleven down the street because I want more people reading comics. We need comics everywhere.
That's it.
And that's what they fucked up the most. And that was a few retailers. And
it's all the usual suspects. No, go ahead and call them out. I call them out every week.
No, Brian Hibbs. Brian Hibbs has
Brian
a lot
Hibbs, all the people at Comics Pro. All the people at Comics Pro.
I was a original member and I quit 1 year later.
I don't know if you heard of it. R. D'Angelo, one of the founding fathers. Well, he's closing his store.
No, he's a good dude.
He is a great dude, but he's apparently his area is being run down by California.
Chicago, right? It's Chicago.
No, he's in California.
He's in California. Where?
Like, outside of Los Angeles, I think. Santa Monica, maybe.
I don't think he was. I know Carr though. Well, Santa Monica, yeah, it went to shit during COVID.
Yeah, and he stated California. Well, he didn't throw California under the bus, but he said there's homeless out front of his place. There's graffiti.
Sherman Oaks
on all.
Northridge.
Where's Sherman Oaks?
And he's got one in Northridge. He's shutting down the one in Sherman Oaks, and I think he's keeping the one in Northridge.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because Sherman Oaks is not like. Well, for one, Santa Monica was really nice. Like the fact that Melrose Boulevard's a piece of shit, right? It's fucking terrible. And they used to be like not super nice, but you could walk down the street. You can't do that anymore. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So Car D'Angelo had to shut down one of his stores. Joe Fields is closing his store because the landlord is jacking up the rent and he's moving to a new location. But the birthplace of Free Comic Book Day isn't going to be Flying Colors anymore. It's going to be outside of where he was. I mean, it's just California. It's fucking California.
Is it California only, or is it the whole country? Because, we talk pretty heavily about, there used to be 10,000 comic book stores in the country, and now there's less than 2,000. I mean, comic book stores are a dinosaur that is slowly dying off, and it's sad. It's really sad. I don't know if it's just California.
I think, the blue states are going to get hit harder. Okay. They just are, because there's tons of comic book stores here. It's lively here in Texas, but we're a booming economy and all this stuff. We're a booming economy. So there's still, I went to MegaCon. And that's the biggest con I've seen outside of San Diego, bigger than New York. New York looks big because everybody's squished in. Like, I hate New York.
Javits is such a shithole too.
Yeah, Javits is fucking terrible. But the MegaCon, like, if you get a chance to go,
I was there
the
2 years
deal.
ago.
Yeah, real deal. Yeah. Good, well put together con. So the market's still there. I don't know for retail stuff. You're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to do what Jamie Newbold did with Southern California Comics. He went into an industrial, where they have metal shops and people make surfboards in San Diego, and the rent's super fucking cheap. And he has a massive comic store in this like industrial area where you can get like some doors made and some windows put in. Oh, and you can buy some comics. Yeah. But it's a genius idea. You have to think outside of the box, whatever. Yeah. You can't maybe strip mall stuff is going to start coming down eventually because
mall, I'm telling you.
Well, Melissa took me to a dying mall that's nothing but fucking anime stores, anime toys. They have 2 separate locations where you can radio control car race. Like, it's just Geek Central there.
That's what if it's dying for that reason, let's
put a pin in that, Gary. That's where we're opening your store at.
Yeah. So, all right. Maybe. So you have this retailer store, and how many years did you have? Almost 10 years. Is that
10,
right?
10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so just a little over 10 years and 6 months.
And you sold it in 2014, right? 2013?
2013, yeah. Okay. December 15th, 2013. What
was the reason that you sold it, and what was your life like at that time?
Horrible. So hubris, the path to relapse many times cannot be necessarily being down, a family death, a divorce. Sometimes it can be especially when you're an addict, when you're really doing well in life. Yeah. And you let that shit go to your head and you forget what's important, like family, and you forget to go to meetings, and you lose focus, and you lose touch with your higher power, and you go down. I went down fast, right? Yeah. And it was over a very innocent thing, but it triggered it. And what happened was, I got injured. I got a stupid injury. I got a stupid injury hanging up a Superman Returns banner. And I was in my store, and I had a folding ladder, and I crushed my thumb. And they gave me pain pills. And that triggered. I'm convinced that triggered it. Now, it took a couple of more years to get it like really fucking downhill. But then once the really fucking downhill happened, Melissa's in the chat. Maybe she dipped out on this part. It went down fast. So I had the store was turned around. We won Best of the Bay. Tyrese Gibson, like, I had people showing up. I had artists showing up. I was friends with Derek Robertson. He drew me into a couple issues of The Boys and Happy. Good guy.
Yeah.
Don't agree with his politics, but he's a good human being. You know, he's a nice guy, and I'm really happy for his
We
success.
just had
with
Nicky
the boys.
Barucci on, and he was telling us the story about how Derek helped get him the boys from DC over to
Dynamite.
that. Just yeah.
Nick Barucci.
Yeah.
I know. I probably shouldn't say too much. I know all the stories behind the scenes with the boys comic and its production and everything. And I know how many times like Derek got his hopes up that there was going to be a movie and then there was going to be a show, and it just went up and down. And so I'm really happy. However, like I'm not a biggest fan of the show after season 1. I will admit it.
Yeah.
It's nothing like the comic book.
Nothing.
That being said,
They lost the
really
narrative on season 2. Yeah.
Really happy for Derek's success. And he earned it. He's a great artist and a good dude.
Yeah.
So things were going really good. Then they weren't. I relapsed. And it was a really fast downfall, and it forced me to face a lot of things. So did my wife. I had like intervention. My wife had an intervention with one of my customers.
Wow.
So one of my customers who became my good friend was part of the intervention. And I had to go to rehab, and it didn't really stick. Now, were there people around taking advantage of the fact that I was in rehab and I was drugged out? Yes, absolutely.
Always.
But you know what? I don't
Can't
blame them. I don't blame them at all. It's my fault. It's all my fault. And so eventually I had to sell this store for a song, basically, just to. So because I had to get out of there. I'm like, there's no me turning my life around while I have to like put out comics every Wednesday. There's no way that's ever going to happen. So sold the store to Brian Hibbs. I was just going to shut it down. And honestly, to this day, I owe every one of my customers an apology for selling it to Brian Hibbs. And I was told it would still be around. It's not being around. He would institute the same things. He just turned it into a comics experience. He hired
Selling
some people,
Dogman and Captain Underpants.
Yeah, he hired some people who were not cool to the customers to the point where they would contact me. So I apologize to them. I should have just shut it down and just kept all the stuff and maybe later. But I didn't. So and a lot of them stayed loyal to Brian and that location. But then they got like super frustrated, and just most of them ended up leaving, which sucks. And then Brian closed the store because customer service, folks. Customer service. You can know all that you fucking want about comics. Number one, you know what? That's more important than knowing about comics. You can learn everything else in osmosis, right? If you know the basics, you're fine.
Yes.
The customers usually know what they want, and let them guide you. But
so let me ask this. So you sell the store.
Yep.
What is it like getting back to sobriety at that point? What did that
hard?
Take? Yeah.
Very hard. Well, it took, it felt like I was dying, right? I was doing so much fucking coke. Like it really did. And I was not young at the time. And I'm not young now. And it just felt like I was dying. And then, it was just, facing, there's 2 kids to be involved.
Yeah.
There's Melissa, and there's letting the boys down was, it's not something I could even deal with. Right. Yeah. So, and like, I'm not a suicidal guy. So like, I have one option, turn shit around. That's it. That's my only option, to live and turn stuff around. I can't bail. I can't quit. I've got a stepson. So one dad already fucking bailed on him. He's my son now. Fuck that guy. But he's my son. And I'm not going to do that to him again. I had a great dad growing up, but I'm adopted. My dad, my sperm donor bailed on my mom. I'm just not going to be that. I'm not going to do that. So, and it was hard facing that.
Yeah.
So I went into sober living, and I had done so much fucking coke that 9 days later I was still peeing dirty. 9 days later, and they booted me, and I'm like, I didn't get high. I didn't get fucking high. And they're just like, wait a couple days, you can go to another house. I'm like, where am I going? So I had to sleep in my fucking car, and had to go back. And like, it's not anything I'd lie about now. 9 days out after doing coke, I peed dirty for coke.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, yeah.
that's how much shit was in my system. That's how much I was doing. Because that usually it takes, it's a couple, 3 days and it's out of your system.
Yep.
Right.
Especially
9
when
fucking
you
days.
have this idea that you're going to have to go into rehab soon. You're just doubling it up. You're like, okay, I need to go have one last hurrah. And that turns into 3 last hurrahs. And then you might go to, rehab if you're lucky. And then, whatever. So rehab, did rehab work for you? Did it finally
when
work?
I went to rehab, like got me clean. So I went to rehab before I finally decided to sell the store. So it was August of 2013. I went to the place called The Camp, really nice rehab near Santa Cruz, Scotts Valley, California. Nice place, beautiful place, nice little vacation. It's the longest I've been off the internet in decades.
Wow.
Like it was 30 days, no internet. Wow. No phone, no nothing. It was kind of great. So I came back, relapsed again, sold the store, and went into sober living. So I went to a sober living house. And because I was taking like opioids and doing coke.
Mhm.
I had already kicked the opioids right at the rehab, which is the hard part. So all I needed to do was kick the coke. It takes a couple weeks. You could honestly in 5 days get like do stuff after coke. Like it's not like opioids, it's a month.
Yeah.
It's a month, 2 months.
When I was using the meth, aka coke addicts, and opioids, aka heroin addicts, the two never would meet. It was like the complete. You knew if somebody was using heroin, they had no meth or coke, and vice versa. 10 years later, it's like, and especially now, it's like they're like this. And one of the things that I was very lucky with is that I got clean, and I was the only one in my friend group that was using. 10 years later, 3-4 of my good friends are hooked on opiates and meth at the same time, and I was lucky enough to bring them in and help them get off. And the fact dealing with the come down off of meth and coke and stuff is totally different than opiates in the way that you deal with the withdrawals, but it really messes up your head, man. I mean, it can do some major damage in your brain and your thought patterns. And did you feel that also?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Especially with speed. Like if you're dealing with any kind of speed, what you're doing is like your body stops producing adrenaline. Like it just gets used to the speed. So your body has to like rejuvenate and bring that. So you're really lethargic. You're really fucking lethargic and sad and depressed.
Psychosis.
Yeah. And it takes a while, but it comes back in spurts, which is crazy. You start feeling like becoming human again.
Yeah.
And it was just, I being surrounded by sober people, they made me piss every couple, once a week or something like that. Yeah. And I had to get a job. I was like, so our money was separated, right? So I had no money. So I didn't fuck around, and I'm like, what else am I going to do? So I started at the bottom again. I mean, that's basically what I did.
And this is one of my favorite parts of your story is this part right here about starting at the bottom again in your job. And I want people to pay attention to this. This is an important thing too. Yeah.
So before I was a business owner of 10 years, making some pretty good money. I was a journeyman parts professional. I could work at any dealership at any time, identify any part, work any catalog, would figure out a catalog within 72 hours. I'd figure out the catalog. I'd figure out the part numbering system. I'd know how to inventory. I know how to do this shit. I needed a job fast. So I went back. It's basically, I was a chef and I went to work at McDonald's. So I worked at O'Reilly's Auto Parts and made $12 an hour. So again, at the top of my career before then, I was making $80,000 a year as a parts professional back in the early 2000s. So I went back to $12 an hour because that's what I had to over. That's what I fucking busy. Had to do.
Yep.
And I worked there, and I was the bottom of the barrel, and like I had to be humble. I had some boss that I knew like I'm so much more than him, but it's okay. It's fine. All right, fine. And I just stayed there. And what I did was I just worked my way up. I worked there. did a good job, showed up on time, learned to like get back into life.
Yep.
And then I'm like, okay, I need to make more money. I'm going to go look for another job. Thanks for the job, but I'm going to go look for another job. Went to another job, worked at a shop. It was fucking terrible. The money was good, but it was one of the worst jobs I've ever had in my life, down in the dog patch in San Francisco. Advanced Auto Works. They're still around. They fucking terrible place. Then I finally got into dealerships again. I was like, I want to, and I wasn't having, and the dealerships were looking at that big break in my resume and they didn't want to bring me on. So I finally got in. A guy took a shot at me because he was desperate. And I got a job up in Marin working at a Dodge dealership. Money was a little better. Liked it there. Got my feet wet. Got really back into the parts thing. I decided I need a little more money. So and that's how I did it. So every year I was changing jobs, moving up, getting back to that old pay. And I worked at Toyota down in San Bruno. So that shot of me at getting 1,000 subscribers and being in front of YouTube, that was when I was working at Toyota in San Bruno. Then Tesla found me on LinkedIn. And I was pretty happy at Toyota. So key to negotiation, always negotiate from a position of, I don't fucking need you. That's the key to negotiation. So I'm like, that's a long San Rafael shit. So I threw a number. I'm like, this is fucking a ridiculous number. They said yes. I'm like, God damn it. I wasn't expecting him to say yes.
Should have went higher.
Yeah.
Should have went higher. Well, free benefits, like free dental, free, like Elon, like does it fucking right.
But they work you to death, right?
They work you to fucking death.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
They pay you for it. They pay you good. But like as a parts guy, you got to be driving a forklift. I was like, I never drove a fucking forklift before. So I had to become certified. And actually my favorite part of the job was driving the forklift around. But I was in the space and defense industry for 15 years. And that's how it worked with me. Once I got sober, I mean, okay, I got to start from the bottom. I started working, crap jobs. And I had the same thing happen. Somebody took a shot on me. I wasn't right for the job, but somebody took a shot on me. And this is the important thing, you guys, that I want everybody to remember, that one, starting over at that situation, that's not as bad as it gets, you know what I mean? And it could help you in a major way, especially when you're going through the drug stuff and trying to get everything back together. But two, most importantly, is somebody taking a chance on you. And you should take a chance on, and remember that in your life. Like, always remember that somebody took a chance on me. I need to take a chance on somebody. I need to do that. It's in my life too. Somebody took a chance on me. Next thing I know, I'm working in the space and defense industry. And the reason why I bring this up is because at the end of my 15 years there, I was like, okay, maybe I'll go work at SpaceX. And I called a buddy and he goes, man, the benefits are amazing. The pay is amazing, but you will do nothing but work. And I'm talking 12, 14-hour days, and it's expected, and it's 7 days a week type thing. And I was like, you know what, man? I think I'm going to go try and sell some comic books and collectibles and try it on YouTube. And that's kind of what you did also too. At some point, you left Tesla to do YouTube, right? Yes.
Well, and can I just say one thing before you start on that one, Gary? Is we talk on here and we haven't showed it in a while, but that Robert Downey Jr. speech where Mel Gibson's on stage and he tells about his recovery and his time with Mel, what I just heard from both of you is one of the greatest hug the cactus moments. You knuckled down, you hugged your cactus, and now you've both come out on the other side. And that's what I love hearing.
Yeah. Yep. You have
to. Well,
it's
because it's all gravy. When you've been to the fucking bottom, like, and you've almost died, like everything else kind of it's a grading curve on life. If you really recognize that, if I do, and that's through the practice of recovery, I've learned to be grateful and trained my mind, not like, if something bad happens, it's not gonna be bad forever. And you know what? Oh shit, at least I'm not dead. At least I'm not in prison, So like Tesla, it was a great job, but I was not happy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, this whole process was, I'm gonna grit my fucking teeth and fucking getting to me. And I'm like, my release was in meetings. Went to a lot of meetings with some friends, and that was like the good part, because I really enjoyed going to meetings and the fellowship in the meetings, going out to dinner afterwards. We had the gratitude. The one great thing about San Francisco is there's a lot of recovery there, because there's a lot of fucking druggies. So on 7th Avenue, right near Amazing Fantasy Comics, pretty good comic store, is a place called the Gratitude Center, right? And they do meetings all day, 7 days a week, and it became my second home. Like, I really enjoyed it. I miss it a lot. If I ever go back, that'd be the only reason I would go back, is to go there. But I wasn't super happy. And, I had always been like, from the time I sold the store, I started the podcast. I've told this story before a million times, just to stay connected into nerddom, so I can still like talk just to a friend. I never expected anybody to listen, and it slowly had built up. And then, the Doctor Who thing happened when I started talking about that. And I had this really controversial take of like, the doctors should never be a woman. The doctor's a dude. That started because not a lot of people were saying that. They're fucking afraid to. I'm like, why? Well, somebody will call you sexist. Who gives a fuck? Who cares? And then it started opening. I kind of saw what was happening in comics. I was watching, diversity in comics at the time.
Shout out to your boy Zach.
Your boy Zach. I love your boy Zach. But I saw it happening there, and the Gamergate, I kind of was paying attention to that. But when I started seeing it in Hollywood, I'm like, oh, it's happening in gaming. It's happening in comics. It's happening in Hollywood. It's happening in our schools. Oh, it's happening everywhere. Holy shit. So I just started talking about it, and it started doing well. Now, I quit way too soon, but I recognized through some lost opportunities, through the brief time I worked in Hollywood, which was while I still own the comic store, by the way, that you know what, you just got to say yes when people ask you to say fucking yes. And if it doesn't work out, great, but don't be like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. Fuck that.
Like
just say yes. You'll figure it out. Yeah,
it's like that Seinfeld episode. Just say yes.
Just say yes. So I saw a big jump. My biggest live stream at the time, unfortunately, was when Stan Lee died, and it was like 2,000 people. I'm like, what the fuck? After that, the Doctor Who thing started ramping up, and Last Jedi and all that, and made a couple bucks on YouTube. I'm like, holy shit, I never thought I could make money on YouTube. So I went to Mrs. Nerdrotic, Melissa, and I'm like, you know what? I think we should take a crack at this. For one, I have a job I can fall back on that I can get anywhere now, because at the economy had gotten better, and there's not a lot of parts guys out there. So this is good. So I can get a job wherever I want. Won't be a Tesla. They're going to be mad, but oh well. I think we should try this YouTube thing, and if it doesn't work in 6 months, we'll bail out. Well, lucky for me, because I wasn't making enough money to live. Lucky for me, the next month the channel blows up. Like it goes from like 7,000 subs to 30,000. I'm like, holy shit. Okay, let's do this. Let's see what happens. Yep. The word grind gets used a lot. It's not a grind at all. It's a joy.
Yes.
There's work involved, but it's an absolute joy. I get to do this. This is fucking awesome. So, that was 5 years ago. Like, I've been doing the channel for 10 years, but it wasn't like serious at all for the first 5 years. That was 5 years ago, and it's just been a great ride. Yeah. It's been fucking fantastic.
A million subs. You hit million subs not too long ago, and
a month ago, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Well, I told you this at San Diego, Gary, but you were part of my recovery story, not from drugs, but I had a heart attack because I was just so overstressed with the week-to-week comic book grind. Diamond, constant damaged books, customers not getting their, customer service that I consider job one. And I just was, I was smoking 2 packs a day, but I was living great. I was having steak 3 times a week. I'm like, let's go out to dinner. I'm going to have another steak. And I had a massive heart attack 2 days after The Last Jedi. And I'm only partially blaming it on The Last Jedi.
I would blame the movie. I wouldn't blame the steak.
Yeah, a steak, 2 packs of cigarettes, and Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi.
I agree.
It was. I've still never seen it
stick
again.
2 packs of cigarettes lit into a steak and eat it. You'd be fine.
Yeah,
you watch The Last Jedi. Yeah,
it'll ruin Star Wars for you.
But that's when the YouTube spear became kind of my recovery, which was, I'm like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I just don't get it. And then I watched over 200 hours of people tearing that movie to shreds. And it all made sense.
Yes.
And I was like, I will never watch this movie again, but I will watch every new YouTuber's take on how bad that movie was.
Well, YouTube's an amazing thing because, and we talked about this last night, and this is one of the reasons you said you started it. The comic book shop used to be something where you would look forward to going there because you knew you were going to run into at least 2 or 3 people that you could sit and have a talk about what was the new Walking Dead like? I haven't read it yet. Tell me what it's like. Or you get into a conversation about some historical comic book thing. Or did you remember this series? Do you remember this? Oh, did you read that? That was one of the main draws of the comic shop is that camaraderie, talking about stuff, nerddom, whatever. That was an important thing. And that kind of died down. But the reason why I think it's died down so much is because this has become that. Sitting here talking, what you do on Friday Night Tights and your shows where you got all these people that are together and talking about all this stuff. That's like chilling at the comic book shop and talking about it. That's
where I hear a lot of your shows, just even you by yourself, is just that comic shop talk.
Yes.
And I almost think that's you got your superpower from the comic book store.
Well, being behind the counter, talking to people 8 to 9 hours a day, every day. Yes. Yeah. And it was just one after the other. There'd be slow parts, but like Wednesdays were fucking nuts. Like my store was pretty legit on Wednesdays towards the end there. It was, we had lines like out the door, down the street, every Wednesday. Like I'd roll up to work 2 hours, people are like early people are showing up. And what kicked that in was like the variants, the Scotty Young variants and stuff. But people like, I would often just like, hey, I can't sell you comics right now, but if you want to come in and sit down, have some coffee, go ahead. That's fine. But I'll be working, Yeah. And that's what we kind of did. And then we officially opened. And it was fucking great. It was great. And I had people, lots of people, just staying there all day and hang out. And I didn't care. I was like, fine. Somebody go get some lunch.
Well, we used to have
I'll buy.
I used to have a Friday night comic talk where for hours, and we had a back room, and you could just bring booze and you could smoke back there, and we'd have 4 or 5 hours of just people hanging out, 20, 30 customers just coming on Friday night to hang out and talk comics, talk about their favorite book they read that week, talk about the favorite series that they just picked up, and that's what YouTube has become for a lot of these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, in a big way. So social media.
And it's I guess the Comic Book Wednesday is back now, right? Did they finally fix that problem?
I don't know. Is DC fully committed to Wednesday, or is it still coming?
It sounds like they are. Didn't they say that
Chat,
that was their plan?
That was announced at Comics Pro, but I don't know whether or not they fully implemented it yet.
And I know the president of Marvel just recently put out that big thing saying that he wants to bring back the Wednesday Warrior thing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Then he gets Gail Simone on a fucking X-Men book. What a fucking retard. Yeah,
I know.
You know what? They all need to be fired. Everybody needs to. They need new blood. It's not going to happen. No, this ain't going to happen. This ain't turning around. The market share, which is a very important thing, has been completely stolen by manga. And they deserve it. They fought harder for it. It sucks. I'm an American comics snob. I think our art, we're talking in the past, is better. I think our storytelling is better. But I think what the Japanese market did was just did what we did and kept doing it.
Yeah.
And didn't pull punches. They didn't pull punches.
No. And they're more consistent and quite
I don't know if I've talked to you, but so since I opened my retro comic book store, I've also opened an anime, manga, video games, record store as a second unit because I didn't want to merge those two.
Yeah.
I wanted to separate them. And now we sell more manga than we sell retro comics.
You'd have to.
Yeah, and it's amazing.
Back issues were selling pretty good during COVID, but it seems like that market's. I mean, this is just anecdotal, but it's to me because the prices are going down. So I'm like, ooh, that's cheaper now. Look at that. You know,
Bryan has a market report show on Saturdays,
Wednesdays.
No, Wednesdays.
That's where this channel came from, Gary. Like during 2018, 2019. I got back heavy into speculating in comics and being able to go and buy a few good books or grab a few good books before everybody knew what they were to sell, to get my grails was the game, right? Buy comics, sell comics, get more comics. And we started a channel of it. That channel died. I started this channel again. We look at the comic book market every week. I look at it multiple times. We look at the sales and okay, these are the new books this week. By Friday, here's what you can sell them for. If you want to sell them now, you're going to lose money if you wait, that type of thing. And it's really died down since COVID. Comic book prices on the secondary market are down, 60 to 70, 80% since 2022.
Well, on some comics though, because Dave Stevens has this renaissance of where all of his books have tripled, quadrupled, septupled in the last 2 years.
Certain
year
ones
since that documentary.
Dave Stevens stuff is going crazy.
They were criminally underpriced forever.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're like, and I got them all, baby.
Oh, I know.
I got those things for nothing. Oh, it's those old Pacific Comic Rocketeer books are just like some of the greatest shit ever made. And it's like, I'm getting this for $5. What the hell? What's
I got one for you. We just reported on this the other week. Dave Stevens did a cover for a special Playboy back issues, like fanzine type thing. And there was one that was signed by him. It was raw. It wasn't graded. It sold for almost $7,000 2 weeks ago.
Holy shit.
$7,000.
Such a loss. One of the greatest comic book artists to ever live. Absolutely ever live. The Rocketeer is one of the greatest creations ever.
Every cover he ever did was gold.
Fucking gold. It was
I put him up there with the good girl pinup art, as I do with the the greats of the good girl pinup art. I think
Fred
Dave Stevens,
Ward.
the Vargas, those like Stevens is up there, and it's good to see him finally get his due. And we'll see that. Well, people are starting to go back to back issues, and I think that a lot of comic book retailers are learning that you are going to be safer selling blind collections and selling back issues, and you'll make more on that investment than you will selling new issues from Diamond or Lunar.
I think the speculation game got away from itself. You really need to turn and burn in the speculation market. You can't hold and gouge. Yes. So that's why, when I get a collection and I just put it all on the wall. We had a kid come in today. He's like, "Oh my God, you have bone issues on the wall?" And I'm like, "Yeah," he bought them all.
Yep.
Good.
I was like, "Yeah."
They're there to sell. Like you're always waiting. Oh, maybe I'll get a few extra bucks. No, you need that money now. That's always been my philosophy. As soon as I bought something, boom, right on the wall. Usually sold that day. Sometimes it didn't even make it on the wall. I'm like, yes, excellent. And that's the great thing about like back in the day. I don't know how it is. Some kid brought in a short box full of Golden Age. This was the best fucking collection I ever got. He's all, "This is my grandpa. I don't know anything about this. I want $600. I'm like, it's actually worth more. I don't want to be a dick. It's actually worth more. He's like, "Just give me $600. I'm like, okay. Gave me $600. I made $12,000 off that fucking $600.
Yeah.
So I was like, holy shit. And I probably could have made more, but I'm like, I'm not going to grade this. I'm not a biggest fan of grading and slabbing. I understand its purpose, but there's
you can't smell a slab.
You can't smell a slab, and you can't smell all the bullshit that goes on behind the fucking scenes and all the fake fucking grading and all the bullshit that goes on. Get a raw book if you can. It's slabbed. It's got a stamp because we said so. How do I fucking know? How do I fucking know if the Marvel stamp's still in there? I just think that it reminds me of baseball cards. We all remember the baseball card thing falling apart because they were grading and they were fucking people over, and then all the scammers came in, and it's hard for a collectibles market to survive that. It goes through cycles. That's why I'm like, it's probably sad, but I like it raw. I like it raw. I like my comic books out.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
we get that a lot.
Absolutely.
So the redemption part of this we've talked about. Let's talk about the rebirth part, because this is the exciting part to me. When's the new comic book store coming? When's the new?
Oh, if a new comic store comes, it'll be for Nerdrotic Jr. And certain things have to, like, I would have to buy the building. I'd have to own it outright. I don't want to pay rent. Fuck that. Now, I was lucky in San Francisco. I had the greatest landlord, a great man, an incredibly nice human being who bought a bunch of buildings, rented them out to people, and never raised rent on people. Just never, because he didn't need it. He was fucking independently rich as fuck. And he's like, yeah, you know, he lived a comfortable life. He was retired. He wasn't greedy. $1,000 a month in San Francisco. That's what I paid. $1,000 a month.
They are kicking out Joe Fields for a bagel shop.
For a fucking bagel shop.
Bagel shop.
That's going to last 6 months.
Yep.
It's fucking retarded.
Yeah.
So did Joe make him mad? I'm like, I like.
No, Joe, he just said, you know, Joe kept extending. This is what I heard, to the point where the guy was like, look, I'm going to get so much more money for this. I can't even give you an extension. They're willing to pay way more than you're ever willing to pay. And it was just like, bye.
Yep.
All right.
Bagel shop.
A bagel shop. That's going to last 6 months. Hope they pay a lot.
Yeah. Are they going to bring 2,000 people into that strip mall for free bagel day? No.
Mm-mm. Yeah. Well, it's sad.
No.
The other thing is there's not that many people, let's be honest, there's not that many people reading comic books as much as they used to.
No, it would have to be vinyl, comics, manga,
Anime,
retro
Toys.
video games, toys, everything would be like nothing new. Fuck the new toy. Well, new toys suck and their margins are crap.
Yeah.
So I would
horrible.
just buy collections and just cycle it through.
Yes.
And it would be like a little con. That's what it would be.
I wish you knew somebody who would help you through this, Gary.
Yeah. You never know. If I find the right building, Mrs. Nerdrotic's been looking. If we find the right building,
Good.
we'll pull the trigger.
I will literally come down and give you all the help you need.
Right. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Like we just like the property prices down here are a little nuts, right? Because everybody's moving to Texas.
Yeah.
But once that cools off a little bit, yeah, I would definitely be into it. And I'd set up a little studio there too.
Hell yeah.
And probably do some live streaming from there. Cause that was the original plan I'm going to do a dumb little podcast till I open up my other store. And then I'll keep doing the dumb little podcast that nobody pays attention to. Well, the channel took off, became like full-time work. We were just talking today, work. This is my third stream. Yes, I saw the chat. I'm not turning off the camera to vape on my third live stream. I don't give a fuck. No, but it's I've done 3 live streams today. I put out a video today, which I put a little finishing touches that we've been working on for 2 days. Garrett did a great job. And I love this job.
Shout out to Quarter Black Garrett.
Shout out to Quarter Black Garrett, Perry Chan, Mrs. Nerdrotic, and X-Ray Girl. The team is amazing. And and the very autistic and wonderful Lady Greymaster, our researcher. So I'm able to like employ all these people now.
Yeah.
But I really did love selling comics. I really liked buying them and going through the collections. And when there was nobody there, that's why there was so much shit on my wall, because it was a giant canvas to me. I can doodle. I can't fucking paint, but I can decorate a fucking comic shop with the best of them.
That's the fun
I know
part.
how to maximize my space and make it like, and then when somebody walked into that comic store and they gasped, that was all I'm like, that's what I wanted right there. And they go, oh, what the fuck? And I'm fine with that. You're insane. You're a crazy person. Yes, I am a crazy person. Normal people don't do this. I'm fine with that. But like, you're entertained right now. Yeah. You're in here. It was worth your trip. You're looking around. You're remembering stuff from your childhood. That's the whole point.
Yep. 100%.
That's the whole point. Hopefully you buy something. You know?
Yeah. All right. I want to jump away from the comic stuff just for a little bit here, because you also have a love for fringe topics.
Oh yeah.
Yes. That's where we're. Well,
go ahead.
I think the three of us might be some of the biggest people to talk about the Nephilim.
Nephilim?
Yeah. The giants of old.
Yeah.
The
UFOs.
giants of old, the men of renown.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, we love your new show.
that's why we're talking about this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about you, but I grew up in the time of the greatest radio show in history, Coast to Coast AM, with this man right here, Art Bell.
Art Bell.
And there was nothing
The
like
Art of Talk. Oh, yeah. Is that first print?
Look at this. You ready for this?
Look at that, baby.
Oh no.
Art of Talk.
Oh no, you've never shown
Has
me
he signed
this.
it?
Oh,
He signed it. Yes.
So, rest in peace, the late great.
So
Art Bell.
I started in 1991 by doing comic book conventions, and I had day jobs during that time. And I couldn't go to a comic book convention unless I left around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening to go to whatever town we were going to, Chicago, Philadelphia, or whatever. And I just remember, and for those of you who don't know, Art Bell was on Coast to Coast AM. And because of ground wave propagation and ionosphere bounce, you would drive across country, and when you would lose Art Bell, you just had to scroll through AM, and you'd pick up the signal from another station.
Yep. The
And
most
so-
listened to show, the most stations. He broke records for the longest time. I could say streaming now, but being on the airwaves at once. He is, to me, the greatest radio man in history. And there was something about at past midnight, the crackle of the AM radio, going to sleep to Art Bell talking about aliens and Mel's Hole and Sasquatch and Area 51 and
remote
viewing, all this stuff. So I got to ask you, Gary, do you know the story of Michael Avon Emming and the Area 51 call?
Yes, I do.
How crazy is that story?
It's great. And I recently got the entire Art Bell library on a fucking thumb drive. Did I tell you about that?
That's
So
awesome.
I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, I found it on eBay for like $200, and it's like the entire thing, and it came on a thumb drive. It's not this one, but it's a thumb drive like this.
Yeah.
And totally illegal. Didn't give a shit. Passed it on, shared it with everybody from Forbidden Frontier. If I could get away with sharing it with everybody, I would, but I can't.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't wait. I'm going through them in order, which is insane. It's going to take me the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But
worth it.
It's worth
absolutely worth it because lost gems like that aren't talked about and they're gone. And good luck finding the archive. Some of it's at Coast to Coast AM, but not all of it. You remember when he used to sell tapes?
Yes.
He used to sell cassette tapes.
Yep. Sometimes you can find them on YouTube. I mean, you can find a ton of old school Art Bell stuff. They even got somebody doing AI in his voice and doing new radio shows, which is kind of crazy, but it is what it is. But that part of the world, the fringe topics, is so amazing to us, and I love that you have this new show that you're doing on it. Talk about the new show and what it's about and where people can see that, because I don't know if everybody knows Nerdrotic. I don't know if everybody knows about this.
Forbidden Frontier. It's on Nerdrotic Live for now, and it will be stay there in some aspect. It's going to Rumble. It's going to go to Rumble in June. So we can get for one, it's just getting demonetized every fucking show. Thought it, even the tame stuff. So it's getting and we knew it would. So we're hoping to expand this into a podcast. You can listen to it on Spotify to grow it outside of YouTube. The one show I want to grow outside of YouTube.
Yeah.
So we're pushing it to Rumble. We're going to do clips on Nerdrotic Live, but it's every Sunday. 5:30 this week. We have George Howard from the Cosmic Tusk. He's putting on the Cosmic Summit. He's a friend of Randall Carlson. He'll be joining us for a little while on the show. So it's going to be we've had some great guests so far, and it's so much fun. It's my passion project.
That's awesome.
You can tell when you watch the show.
Yeah. That's great.
I'm sick of tired of freaking woke Hollywood or shitty comics. which I honestly, I don't talk about shitty comics anymore. I try to stay out of it. I don't know if you've like, comics is my hobby that I enjoy. Like, that's my thing I enjoy. So I'm not, you know what? I'm going to stick with Hollywood. That's why, I stopped buying new stuff. I want to keep enjoying this. If I can enjoy comic books post retailing, it means I love them.
Yeah.
So, are you reading anything currently? Is there anything out there that you are that's new that's coming out?
Millar's stuff I read through, and Conan. Conan's excellent. Awesome.
Yeah.
But that is it. Now, Az is trying to get me into the Transformers. I heard it's pretty good.
I was just gonna say that, Gary, if you had any love for G.I. Joe and Transformers growing up, which I did, G.I. Joe is my nostalgia potion.
And I'm sure you remember this too. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And if you get a chance, it just started. It's the Energon universe. Kirkman's doing it on Skybound. He's got Joshua Williamson writing, and G.I. Joe and Transformers, especially G.I. Joe, is some of the best. And I've been very anti-comics lately, past 3 or 4 years, because of the writing in it, and the content's been garbage. This stuff is amazing.
That's what I heard. I've heard from too many people that I trust that it's great. Yeah, there's Rippaverse, of course, Eric. There's independent stuff that I'm trying, but they were asking about like mainstream. I stopped 3 years ago, and quite frankly, I wasn't reading a lot of it. Probably post 2017. I wasn't.
Yeah, Power of X started out with an interesting premise, and it lost it within 2 issues.
When I read that Ghost Rider comeback in 2019. 2019, I think. I was like, fuck this. How do you fuck up Ghost Rider? How in the fuck do you fuck up Ghost Rider? But they did.
Johnny Cates.
Yeah. My biggest problem is comics.
I hope he finds the road to recovery. I hope
absolutely.
He was fighting some demons.
Hey, one of the questions in the chat, and I don't know if you have paid attention to this. I don't think I've ever heard you talk about it. What is your take on the Ed Piskor situation?
That's fucking horrible. They the Whisper Network got what they wanted. They got exactly what they fucking wanted. They've been shooting for this for a long time. They're not fucking sorry. They're only sorry that they got caught, basically.
Yeah.
And and
that he actually called them out in his suicide note. That's what hurt them the most.
I mean, the reality of the situation is having friends who have too many friends who committed suicide. That was going to happen anyway. It just was. He was a depressed, suicidal guy. But you take away something that fast from somebody, you are murdering them. You are murdering them. And that was their intention. They knew it, and they have no fucking remorse. These are these are sociopaths. There's so many of them in comics, by the way.
Yeah.
These are narcissists. It's an advanced narcissism brought on by a deep-seated insecurity. That's where most narcissism comes from, is insecurity. And it can make you very ill, and very heartless as a person. And we see it on display. And with the fucking usual suspects, and I got to be careful, but fuck them all. I hope they live long, miserable fucking lives, because that's what they are, and they have no fucking talent. And I'm, that suicide note was unfucking believable.
Yeah,
but it's sad. I feel bad for his family.
Heart.
Yeah, and it was a huge blow to the comic book industry. I won't name names, but I did talk to some pretty prolific people. One prolific person in particular, who were like, "Hey, I have a plan to maybe bring back Marvel and DC. I'm going to go talk to the representative leaders, especially Zaslav." And the Piskor incident, they just went, "Fuck it, I'm not doing it. I'm not going back. I don't care. It's not even worth my time." Like, and they were gonna do it to save comic books, not to make money. This person doesn't need to do that. But they just said, "Fuck it. Nope. Done.
It's not worth it."
So it was a huge blow to the comic book industry, and it put a dark cloud over everything, and it also exposed a lot of stuff that needed to expose. But quite frankly, the industry itself allowed that in. There's many people who are trying to distance themselves from what's her fucking name now?
Heather Antos.
Heather Antos is one of them, but there's the British one, the one that Rich Johnston fucking loves. Alex DeCampi.
Alex DeCampi.
Alex fucking DeCunty. Like, she's vile. She's a vile fucking human being.
And as Zach says, name 3 books that she's written.
You can't. She's been a fucking sponge everywhere. But that being said, the industry allowed these people in. The industry was wishing, people who were going after Zach. Joe Quesada was wishing, people who were going after your boy Zach at the time, trying to cancel him, fucking happy birthday and shit. So fuck off, Joe Quesada. Fuck off, Mark Wade. You all, Gail Simone, you brought this into the industry and got rid of like Warren Ellis for what? Being
nothing.
A dude.
Yeah.
For nothing. For absolutely nothing. And all these women knew what they were getting into. By the way, one of the women who ran that forum, I won't name her name, worked in my store for a little while. So I knew about that forum. I knew that. And that forum was just a hookup forum. That's all it was. Who cares?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Tinder before Tinder.
You look like Warren Ellis, and you have all these women coming up to you.
Trust
and you're
me,
single.
I wish I had his talent. I wish I had his talent. I'd pull that.
Yeah. Do you think that we've seen things in, responses to what's happened that cancel culture there might be some hope on the horizon with cancel culture? Because I feel, especially in comics, because I feel like this kind of put a big spotlight on a lot of stuff in a major way. And I think I'm finally starting to see a little bit of pushback. I mean, do you see that at all?
There is pushback. It's just too late. Like when the big two respond, like really when Gail Simone got the fucking X-Men job, that sealed the death of your fucking industry. I know it seems like a very little thing, but not that she was even that active in cancel culture, but she definitely supports the people who are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that you respond to this by giving her, remember, Zoe fucking Quinn got hired at fucking DC and got to do books. And she was responsible for killing a dude too. Yeah. So, and they know it, and they don't care.
Chris Claremont and John Byrne are still out there somewhere, and they're not writing X-Men. When you hit back, rock bottom,
he's just writing.
You don't
one-offs.
Call them up and offer them whatever they want to come.
Byrne was one of the first people who got canceled. When he spoke on his own forum, when he said a little salty thing about Fantastic Four, and it was nothing. But yeah, how do you not call John Byrne to consult on a Fantastic Four movie? How do you not call
Chuck Dixon to make your Punisher book when it hits rock bottom?
Exactly.
What did you think about the whole thing with Glenn at Comic Book Palace? Did you see that whole thing?
No. What was that?
So that was when the guy this popped off a few months back, and Mark Miller really kind of keyed in on it. There was
that Glenn. Yeah, when he just said some very basic
true things. Yeah,
and they came after him, calling him pepperoni breath.
They immediately went after his looks and everything. And it was such a bad, and he was telling the truth. That's what the majority of people who are reading comics that love the industry, love comic books, are saying that these people that are writing these books, they don't love comics. They aren't comic people. They don't care about the history of comics, the community of comics. And that's what we all feel. And he just got decimated for it. But I felt like there was something that kind of good came of that, where Mark Miller kind of came out and he said, all right, I'm gonna lean into this. I'm gonna find out what's really going on here. And he started doing his podcast. That kind of stuff I'm hoping is like a beacon that more people will start to, okay, if he's doing it. I know there's people like you that have been doing it for a while, and there's other people out there on the YouTube and stuff. But when you've got major writers like him and so on that are speaking the other way than, the cancel culture, the Whisper Network, I just hope that changes something.
I think it will. See, okay, behind the scenes, people like Heidi McDonald and Alex DeCampi had a lot of power, right? And shitheads like Scott Snyder would, or Max Visaggio, right?
Yeah.
And what they do is they try to throw them work to appease them. There are some creators who wanted nothing to fucking do with these people, and they all fucking hate them, by the way. So even and that's why Mags Visaggio got mad for being love bombed, because Mags knows the truth. They all fucking hate Mags. Mags is no talented. Mags decided to transition and all of a sudden got a bunch of jobs.
Yep.
And the jobs are drying up because they're not talented. and you're fucking fighting for scraps in comic books. And right now, the highest ceiling for making money is going out on your own, because you're not going to fucking make any money at the small two. The small two are done. They will be shuttered. They will be licensed out. That's the only future for them. Comic shops will always be around in some form or another. Not as many. Well, but we're losing fucking Earth 2 Comics, Card D'Angelo. That's fucking huge. I didn't even know about it. And that was a month ago. So it's so in my rearview mirror. And comics isn't fun. Like Zach did a great video about like, this isn't a fun place. Yeah. It's not a fun place right now. It used to be a really fun place. It's not a fun place right now.
It's fun when you reminisce, but it's not fun when you talk about the new stuff. And that's a problem, because we love to reminisce about the good times of comics.
But here's the, and I'm going to bring this up constantly. The comic book store has to understand the hippie record store business model.
Yes. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing.
It's the exact. I have a whole soliloquy on this. Oh, we lost Gary.
No, I'm here. He's just taking a second. Yeah.
No, I'll vape on camera. I just had to, pick my nose real quick.
No, that's fine. But the hippie record store, I have a whole soliloquy about this. And we have to get that mentality. We have to understand that if the big box stores take over your market and you're getting the scraps, you've got to stay alive, because to me, the comic book store is gospel. It's the church. It's the purest form of the church.
One of the last good Simpson episodes was the comic book shop guy, and Jack Black and his girlfriend came to take over the hipster comic shop. And that was the changing of the guard. And I'm like, I remember watching that going, fuck, which one am I? I hope I'm not that fucking hipster fuck.
No, but here's the thing. That hipster fuck was the comic book store that had the stand-up comedy place and all of that in Los Angeles that ended up
Meltdown.
And it got every benefit that the industry could give them, and they still closed 2 years ago.
Atomic Comics, a great Razor Fist used to work at Atomic Comics. That was a good shop.
I didn't know that.
Razor Fist worked at Atomic Comics.
Which one did he work at? Do you know?
The one in Phoenix, I'm guessing.
Wow.
They had a bunch of them.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That was my home store, Gary.
I remember
Atomic Comics in Metro Center was my home store.
Guy. He was a really sweet guy. He had the bookmobile at Comic-Con where you could fucking get into a van and read, check out the comics.
But he was also featured in Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass, yes. Yeah.
Like he was at the premiere of Kick-Ass that they had for retailers.
No, Meltdown was a fucking great shop. It was a great shop. By the way, I did stand-up comic I did Comic versus Comics.
Did you actually get up and do comedy?
I didn't know. I got actual comedians to go up.
I was about to say because that is one of the most amazing things. Anybody that's ever gone up and done stand-up comedy, like what are open mics, I have so much respect for you.
Oh yeah, I could never do that.
No.
Yeah.
No. That's the I would say the single hardest form of, like, music might be the highest form of art, but the hardest is comedy.
100%.
Comedy. You got to have fucking balls of steel to do that. And take that kind of rejection. But I mean, we're past the point of fixing this, like with retailing. We're past the point. I mean, it's the saddest thing to say in the world, but I was all for breaking up Diamond and getting multiple distributors, because that would create more competition, which would create more innovation. I remember Diamond, when I first got to at the store, they were on fucking DOS in the 2000s. I was on DOS, and they finally, 4 years later, decided to upgrade their systems. Why? Because they didn't need to. They had no competition. There was no innovation. And we kept on selling more comics to the same people. We started charging more money for comics to fewer people. And it's like, this thing is clearly dying. And then I'll never forget it. Derek Robertson calls me one day in a panic. And he's like, did you see the sales report? I'm all, no. What's up? He's all, Amazing Spider-Man sold under 60,000 issues. It was the first time it happened. And that was like, and nobody took that seriously. Like, I called my rep. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And because it was a drop of like 30%. Now, had a lot to do with one more day. Had a lot to do with that shit.
The worst.
Joe Quesada, you fucker.
Yes.
But and that killed Spider-Man overnight, by the way.
Yes.
Well, and Gary, the biggest thing with that is, and I'm sure you can expound on this, our customers were married, they were having kids, the Spider-Man customers were growing up and they were starting families, and Peter could have been because clearly it's proving it now with Ultimate Spider-Man and Spider-Man having kids. That would have been the chance to capture and keep those customers, and
Taking
then you
away
could have
Mary
given
Jane.
Miles off to the side. You could have given Miles off to the side and still had an active Peter Parker building a family like
If
all
Miles
of our
was his
customers.
sidekick,
Yeah,
like he should have been,
Yep.
it would have been great, and give him a different name. Him being Spider-Man's retarded.
Yeah.
Miles Morales is Miles Morales.
But
I know
this is what a lot of people don't realize. That was a whole thing for them to keep the Spider-Man IP going, right? I mean, that was
That's my guess.
yeah.
that was to protect from the Ditko estate.
Yes.
that was
Yeah,
fighting them.
yeah, that would be my guess. I like most of that stuff has a lot to like Superman having a collar.
yeah.
You know, it's
Just
And
for
no
ways for them
underwear.
to rip
And no
somebody
underwear.
off that
No
created
underwear.
it. Yeah, again, the comic industry eating its own, not helping out the people in comics, treating them like shit. I mean, that
the
should never
fact
happen.
that most of the legends of comic books died
poor.
penniless and
Yep.
broke.
Len Wein.
Yeah.
I talked to his son right before he was at Comic-Con about a month before he died. So my son got to meet him. My son's named Logan, like a lot of dads did. Named my son Logan after
That's
Wolverine.
cool, actually.
Wanted to meet one of the people who created him. Glenn was fucking sweet. Talked to his son, and he was there dying, signing stuff so his kid could have money. So I felt so fucking bad. My whole like stack I had to I just gave it to him. I'm like, here, dude, like, thank you.
Yeah.
And he was a really sweet kid, by the way. And I guess Hugh Jackman helped out a little bit, so good for Hugh, but Fox
Yeah.
didn't. Disney didn't.
No.
Nobody fucking helped him. But
Well,
Hugh
now they're
Jackman
screwing
did.
them even more with this whole adding a new Wolverine creator to the list, and Roy
Co-creator
Thomas. Yeah,
that
co-creator,
barely touched it. Yeah.
which is wrong. So
Yes, it is wrong, but that's the comic book industry.
yeah,
It's-
there
it
you
is.
go.
It's
That's why
wrong, and
we
somebody
have
wish
this
we
show.
still love it. But
Yeah.
I just retail wise, be clever, still have that hippie sell vinyl, sell used video games, retro video games is going to be a huge fucking market.
It already is, baby.
Already is. And you'll still have a shop, and it'll be way more. It'll be way more in tune with what the old comic stores were. Anyway, I've always hated the newsstand, which is we just have new releases. Here's some trades in the back. I sold trades. You know how I sold trades eventually? I fucking hate trades, by the way. I stopped buying them from Diamond altogether. I'm like, the weight on these things is fucking ridiculous. I live next, I work next to, unfortunately, to San Francisco State, and people cycle through. So I'm like, I just did this insane little buyback program.
Yep.
And I filled my shelves with used trades. And the only new ones I
That's
bought,
smart.
like Watchmen, just the high sellers. And I cut my weight in half, and my bill way down, because I just I just sold used trades. And
That's smart.
and then once the word got out, like other stores were offering them too. I was like, I never have to buy these things brand
Yeah.
new ever.
Yeah. Well, and I was just saying this on the last show. Some of these trade paperbacks, and Brian, if you want to bring the private chat link up, some of these trade paperbacks, it's easier to staple a $20 bill to your wall than to give the industry $20 to put this $40 trade paperback that nobody wants to buy on the wall.
Right.
And so this is the top 20 graphic novels of
Oh, it's gonna
2023.
be sad.
Yeah. Marvel doesn't appear until, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. So Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is number 8. I can't imagine how much of that they actually sold.
Who the fuck bought that?
I don't know, but it's number 8 under Saga, number 1.
Yeah,
Saga's
this is
still-
crazy.
Shit, that was selling when I was around.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
So-
It's an evergreen now, but
Yes.
I don't see Watchmen anywhere on here. I don't see Why the Last Man anywhere on here.
Nope.
But
Walking
guess what?
Dead,
But guess what? Demon Slayer, Berserk,
Yep.
Dogman.
Oh, Berserk is good.
yeah, and you're sitting there and you're like, Chainsaw Man is number 4. So you sit there and you look at things like this and you're just like, there's one Marvel book on here. There's one DC book. Why is,
And Spider-Punk, by the way, is my biggest hate for the comic industry. How do you take such a great designed character, perfect character, amazing, and put somebody in there to write it that has no idea about the punk aesthetic? Like, that was so obvious the way he was writing that book, that he had no clue about the punk aesthetic, and that's important when you're writing this character. He's Spider-Punk.
All right.
You know, you got bad guys that look like the Misfits and stuff, and you can tell you have no idea what punk is about, and it just ruined it for me. Great character. I want to be able to read stories.
It was
about
like that guy who made the "What If Miles Morales was Thor."
Oh,
he just had no fucking clue, and you're just like, how did you turn this book over to him? You know?
Yeah, it's sad. It's really sad, but but
that's where modern comics is right now.
Yes. And another thing that's interesting, and this for the retailer side, is a lot of new retailers are not only having to pivot what they sell in the shop, but how they sell, which means live sales, selling on eBay. I mean, was eBay a big deal when you had your store?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you ever think about selling on eBay?
It was a good side hustle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, tons of stuff on eBay.
That's smart.
God, I was eBaying since it first came around in the 90s. So I was when there was no pictures.
I started in 99.
Wild West. It was the one.
Yeah,
dude. One of the first books I bought on eBay was Amazing Fantasy 15 low grade for $1,300. Sent a fucking check. Never even saw the picture. Had a description. Got it in the mail.
Wow.
Got it in the mail. It was like a 2.5. It's worth fucking thousands now. Yeah. $1,300. It was 1999, about around there.
Yep.
Wow.
Wife at the time was pissed. So, that was most of my money.
You spent how much?
Yeah, well, dude, when you spend $1,300 of your $2,200 in your bank account, she's gonna notice.
Yeah, but this is AF-15.
That's the way it was.
Yeah,
that's the way it was. But
that AF-15 is worth 10 times that. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, eBay is a good tool. I fucking hate eBay, but it's like necessary.
It's a necessary evil.
And you can find some cool stuff.
I just sold a $600 Sega Saturn Bomberman game on there. So I mean,
shit. See,
yeah, it's
vintage games, okay. Vintage games are it. They're gold. The gaming generation is now in their 30s and 40s, so that hits that 20-year, 25-year rule.
I had an
disposable income.
Yeah. I had an 18-year-old kid come in on his birthday, and his parents said he can buy anything he wants, and he bought an Atari Jaguar in the box.
Wow.
I'm just like, huh? Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't have that far back, but I have a bunch of retro gaming systems because those are the only ones I know how to play. My PS5 is still in the fucking box.
Yeah, I can't push all the buttons. I'm an idiot. I
tried to play NHL.
No, but Gary, aren't you notorious for being one of the biggest gamers?
I'm amazing at what I actually play is the one-ups. My arcade games. I play the shit out of those. Those are fun as hell.
Yeah, I sell those in the store as well. Everybody loves them. I just have them for everybody to play, and occasionally one sells, and I'm like, all right, perfect.
There you go. Yeah, and they're cheap. They're well put together, and they're like $400.
What are your thoughts on crowdfunding when it comes to the retail spot? Because this has kind of been an issue. We talked about it the other night also that, crowdfunding, some people think that the crowdfunding aspect is taking away from the comic book shop.
I don't think so. I absolutely, I am always of the philosophy is more comics are better. I don't care how you fucking get them. I don't care how they're out there. Just get them. If people are if a guy in Russia who's never going to make it to a comic store all of a sudden starts reading X-Men and somehow he makes it to America and he tells his kids, hey, X-Men are pretty fucking cool. You just made a customer. So
Eric July just talked about how Buddy Saunders over at Lone Star is a big customer of his. And when you see books filtering around, and every collection of every Kickstarter is going to eventually pop into stores, and those stores will then sell them. It's all about a cyclic nature. I used to fight Kickstarter much like I fought digital. I still fight digital for day and date digital. But with Kickstarter, I stopped fighting it because it does create new people. There are customers that will buy an Eric July comic book that have never touched a single piece of source material before. And that's where my whole store is geared for, is the normies. I call them the normies because they're the normal people who have never touched the source material for The Walking Dead. But Walking Dead never sold more than 200,000 or 300,000 of any particular physical media, but it had 20 million people watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's so much untapped potential.
That remember the early days when your movie or your TV show would lead up. Fuck, The Watchmen comes out. All of a sudden, like everybody's buying The Watchmen. Sin City, which did moderately well. Those books were printing money. I was just reordering them, boom, 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 off the shelves. And yeah, Walking Dead trades were my evergreen. They moved all the time. You mentioned Why the Last Man. They used to move all the time. I think that got killed.
That show
Sandman.
fucking destroyed Why the Last Man.
Yeah.
You can get a 9.8. I just watched your show on Wednesday, Brian. Or no, it was Spec Media. They're in the chat. Go over and sub them. Spec Media just had a 9.8 Why the Last Man. How many times did that come into your store?
Number
Why the
one?
Last Man, number one.
Not many, but I had some.
A couple. I mean,
but I was around when it came out. So, I mean, I was. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, it's sold out. There's very few of them. You can get that in 9.8 for less than $300 now.
That's sad. That's sad.
And that TV show killed Why the Last Man.
Walking Dead #1 was one that was like low print run, really fucking hard to get. I did buy some for myself. They were all sold off the shelf to people who specifically asked for
Kirkman used to bring those to shows and sell them for cover price to people who wanted autographs.
Art for doing that.
God, he's the greatest. He's really the greatest publisher.
I'm not the biggest Walking Dead fan in the world. I tried it. I thought it was good at first and it got really fucking boring and horrible people in it. And I was rooting for the zombies, but I greatly admire his success, respect what he's done. And a lot of people love it. And that's awesome. I personally think like Invincible is better.
Oh, I agree. You know what I love, Gary?
Hard too.
Here I got a funny story about Walking Dead. So when Walking Dead was coming out, Atomic Comics was my home shop. I was there every Wednesday. And the guys at Atomic would tell me, you have to read this book. You have to add it to your pull box. And I was a Battle Pope fan. And if you guys don't know what Battle Pope was.
Battle Pope's awesome.
Yes.
I love Battle Pope.
So Tony Moore and Robert Kirkman started their comic book career on Battle Pope. And that was their first book that they did. So I was a huge Battle Pope fan. So I bought Battle Pope. And I said, I'm over zombies. I don't want to read about zombies anymore. So it took me to about 10 issues till I got onto it. But my biggest problem is, I was at a con, I think it was San Diego one year. I'm standing there talking to Tony Moore and his wife because I'm buying art. And I'm going through $50 to $100 pages of Walking Dead and passing them up for Battle Pope pages, original art Battle Pope pages. I passed up $300 covers of Walking Dead for a Battle Pope cover. I love it. It's amazing. But I probably threw away, thousands on that because I wasn't a Walking Dead fan. I was a Battle Pope fan,
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So, good shit.
Oh, I definitely instant regret not keeping it. I just didn't think to. And it's like, it's black. Fucking so dumb.
Yeah.
So dumb.
All right. Before we get you out of here, because I know you've been busy today, I want to hit a little bit on Star Wars, not too much, but I want to be a happy Star Wars thing. One of the things that you love, that I love also, that a lot of people don't know how good it is the novelization of Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, it's the best Star Wars novelization by far.
I am one of the biggest Star Wars nerds in the world. I went to every theater opening night from after Jedi on. I was there every opening night for every re-release, every Star Wars thing. I went to every celebration.
Brian, I've got you beat. My mother let me skip the last day of school, May
Jedi?
25th, 1983, to see the first showing of Return of the Jedi.
There you go.
It's the only class yearbook I don't have any signatures in because they handed it out the last day.
So, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, like most of us, that has totally fell off because of what they've done to it. But when the prequels were coming out, I didn't like number 1 like most people. 2 was okay. I was so geeked for episode 3 because, like a moron, I read the novelization that came out early. Yep. And I thought this was going to be the best Star Wars ever, because the novelization has the best part about Star Wars, which is badass Anakin going through in his head and what he's going through during that time. The greatest stuff. And it was nothing like that.
No. His descent into the dark side, you completely buy in the book. In the movie, you don't. I know there's a lot of nostalgia with those movies. If you love them, that's great. They're not good. They're not good. George was way past his prime. But Anakin was a compelling enough character where it did like absolutely create a new generation of Star Wars fans. Just not as many. It's minuscule compared to the original trilogy. Sorry, we were there first. But yeah, I remember reading the book and I remember playing it, the audiobook in my car. We're driving down to LA. We reach our destination, but we're like, let's go around the block. We need to listen to this. We need to keep listening to the book. So we kept going around the fucking block. And the whole family was into it. We're like, this is fucking awesome.
Oh,
this is gonna
that
be great.
last chapter.
This is what we were waiting for. We didn't need those first two movies. We got this. It's fucking terrible. It was
the last chapter of that book is Anakin's on the table and you're in his head, and it is some of the best Star Wars writing out there.
Yep.
And they totally passed it over.
Get the audiobook or get it. Who wrote it again? S.A. Salvatore? Did he write that?
John.
Salvatore.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, man.
And he wrote some of the Dragonlance books too, didn't he? He wrote a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and other stuff.
Yeah, he was on the floor of Comic-Con. Him and Jim Butcher, always on the floor of Comic-Con back in the day. You could just go and talk to him. Really cool dudes.
So I kind of suspected episode 3 was going to be a shit show.
Matt Stover. Okay,
Matt Stover.
I think Salvatore did like Attack of the Clones or Phantom Menace, one of the two.
So I was representing a lot of actors who were in episode 1, episode 2, and they were doing, this is kind of early kind of Doomcock type reporting, where it was like, oh, dude, they're refilming my scene. They don't know how they're going to kill me. And I knew this actress was going to die. But they filmed her dying 3 different ways, and they kept calling her back. Kenny Baker had to cancel conventions for me because he was sitting by a phone in England waiting for the call that they said they were going to give him. And he literally was like, I can't do this show. If they call me, I can't be out of England. And they basically, the fans got wind of this. They weren't even going to call him, is the rumor. And the fans started early internet like, hey, are you guys going to call Kenny? Kenny's waiting by this phone. And they brought Kenny in for like 2 hours to film something on green screen to use him in.
Yeah. They just didn't fucking care. They didn't. To answer the chat, yes, I did say, for one, when I was really into this shit, I read all the movie novelizations. That was my thing. Read them all. Peter David, extraordinary fucking novelist, by the way. A lot of comic book writers aren't the best novelists, Alan Moore, but Peter David is fucking exceptional. Spider-Man 3, I will stand by it. Good movie novelization, better than the movie.
Peter David unfriended me because of his TDS.
Oh yeah, no. he's got TDS. He does. It's bad. It's very sad.
I was good friends with him for a while, and then it was just like, okay, go after yourself. Right.
Yeah, Mrs. Nerdrotic and I have lost a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Finally, the last Star Wars thing I want to bring up is, did you hear about the Infinities news?
No.
All right.
The Infinities.
So, do you remember Star Wars Infinities?
I do. They sold very well in the store, and I actually liked them quite a bit.
My favorite Star Wars comic book stuff, during the Dark Horse run, which is the best Star Wars stuff.
Yep.
They had it was like Marvel What If, but it was it was Star Wars, and they did one for each of the first for episode 4, 5, and 6, and they did a thing where what if Luke saved Anakin at the end of Jedi, and there's this moment where Vader walks out after he saved him, and he's in an all-white suit. And it is one of the greatest storylines ever, because now he's back to the Force and he's on the light side, right? He's not a part of the dark side. And it was just amazing ideas and stuff. And there's news that they might be doing a Marvel What If style show for Star Wars.
Because the Marvel What If style fucking show worked out so well. It was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
I hope it's different.
What's the over under on this one, Gary?
Fucking, it'll be shit. It'll be dog shit. Black lesbians will be Darth Vader.
God, did you see Zach's all comic book writers are fat ugly lesbians video?
No, his les dispenser video.
Yeah. Oh
that
my
was
God,
the fucking best
Zach
thumbnail
is literally
of all time.
Zach is like the Mike Trout of fucking videos right now, tearing the industry to shred.
Zach doesn't want to hear this. I love that he's publishing comics and he's doing well. Like he's very successful in his niche, and it's great. Mm-hmm. He's a better YouTuber. He's a better YouTuber. He's a fucking better YouTuber. His insights, his analogies are second to none.
Well, and it's what Criscione says. Authenticity is the new commodity. And Zach is nothing but authentic.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's put out some good books though.
He just recently,
and that I like. So
what was the Ninjas one? Ninjas and the one he just put out. I
didn't get the Ninja book.
Okay.
It was something
Ninja Funk, isn't it?
No, not Ninja Funk. No,
Ninja Funk's that Whatnot book. Jesus, how did you even make me think that?
Yeah, what are you talking? Don't even put that in the same
Rock and Roll Ninja.
Rock and Roll Ninja. Excellent.
Art looked good. The art looked really fucking good.
Matt Barr, I believe, did the art. So if you guys get a chance,
I got was
shout out to your boy Zach. The one is Zach's channel. Your boy Zach. It's just literally
it should be diversity in comics.
Yes,
that's what it should be.
He should have kept it. Yep.
So, well, man, this was an awesome episode. I don't want to keep you too long because it's been a long day for you, but I want to say thank you so much for jumping on with us. It was very nice to meet you, and I appreciate everything that you've been through to get where you are. I think that's very important. I like to say that if I was going to go into battle with anybody, I would choose somebody that's been through addiction and gotten out on the other side over somebody that's never touched a drug in their life, because I know what they've been through hell and they've made it out the other side. So congratulations on that, man. Congratulations on the channel, and thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me out. It was fun to talk retailing, man. Oh my God, it's been so long. We were talking before the show. It's like, I loved going to retail summits. I mean, not for the dumb, boring fucking meetings and DC and Marvel trying to sell us some bullshit. It was hanging out with the comic shop owners and just shooting a shit because nobody knew our pain, right? And things to laugh at. And it was the funnest part, of going on those stupid trips.
Well, and I watch your show. I watch almost all of your shows, and I can hear it every once in a while when you start talking. I was like, he still has a taste for it.
Oh God, yes.
Has a taste for it.
Oh hell yes. That's in my blood. It's absolutely, and like I'll spend more time away from it. But I just told you the story. There's like a speakeasy shop that I was invited to, and it just got, man, it was like taking a hit again. It was like all the back issues in there. I'm like, oh yeah. And I walked out of there not spending anything, but I gave the guys a list that's fucking ridiculous. I'm like, I need these keys. I know everybody's looking for these keys, but I'll actually buy them. So,
we just got a $5 super chat from Super Mastermind. He says, Gary, you like Lord of the Rings? Look up The Adventures from Aircell Comics in the 80s.
Okay.
So
The Adventurers?
Yes, The Adventurers.
Let me see if I recognize this. From which comics company?
Aircell. I'm going to bring it up.
Aircell
made all those early manga adaptations. Area 88.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Like, I would just have to see a cover. I never bought it or anything, but that looks fucking awesome. I'll have to check that out. Listen, there was stuff I admittedly like just slept on, like Elric.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, when
Michael Moorcock.
When it was Pacific Comics and it moved through multiple, I just never bothered. And then when I went back and bought it, it's one of the greatest comics ever made. It's like so fucking good. P. Craig Russell. It's amazing art. And God, yes, I remember this stuff.
Yeah, I went for a while too. It looks like it's got quite a few issues.
honestly seen it since probably 86, but
hey, that's why we do this, right? That's the reason we do this, so we can find out these books that we might not have seen, man. That's comic shop talk.
That's it.
No, hey, none of us have read everything. None of us. You know, I've got huge black holes. That's why, that's what I've been like. I don't need new shit. Like, I didn't read any of the Silver Age DC stuff. I was a Marvel guy, so anything pre 1970, I didn't read any of that shit.
Well, 1996 or 95, when Kevin Dooley, the editor over at DC, made Hal Jordan go nuts, kill the Guardians, I stopped reading Green Lantern. It was my favorite book at that period of time. And I went back to the late 70s when they had the Green Lantern Corps.
Yep.
And I bought all the back issues and I read them once a month for the next 2 years. And it was so much better than anything.
And those back issues were cheap, weren't they?
They were quarter a piece.
They're nothing. And that's why I bought a Superman run that's unfucking believable, right? So I originally on eBay, the guy had it as Superman, like the main title, from basically 200 up to I think it stopped in 2004.
All that Neil Adams stuff,
$2,500. I'm like,
yeah,
boom! The motherfucker sent me all the other titles, like everything. The guy just threw in his entire collection, so all the side titles, everything, and Superman 200 Action Comics, by the way, too. Threw on all the Action Comics from the same time. Superman 200 goes way back, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm just going through those issues, and they're goofy as fuck, but I love them.
Yes.
Superman, we're dying of thirst. You have the only glass of water.
Fuck you. Well, that's why there was the famous site I talk about. Remember Super Dickery?
Yes.
Super Dickery.
Yes.
Yes. The dick. Yes.
Yep. There was a cover, an old school Action Comics cover, where the bad guys got him tied on a conveyor belt, and there's a big saw blade, and it's at his head, and it's hitting his head, and he says in a word bubble, he says, "Oh man, this feels excellent," oh, the massage of this saw blade feels so good,
There's one that I just saw on Instagram today. It's Superman holding onto a tree, holding Batman. And Batman's holding Robin, and they're trying to rescue a woman on a boat. And they're like, Superman, why are you being a dick? Just go save the girl on the boat.
He's a fucking dick.
Yeah.
The last cover I just bought was there's no thought bubble or anything. It's just Superman coming out of the ground, and there's two horribly drawn Chinamen looking over because he went through the earth to China. So that's my thing right now is all the politically incorrect.
Yes.
The young Ally comic books. There's a couple of covers from the early days of Young Allies.
Yeah.
Woo! Oh my god, I want to find those.
Yeah.
They're horrible. They're absolutely horrible.
We got another 2 super chats. Read them off there, Brian, real quick. And
then we've got
wrap up Gary.
Zion42 says, "Thank you for such a great show today. I need to go back and see more of your great shows." Thank you, Zion. Appreciate you. We do a lot of stuff here. We've got 4 live shows a week. We talk about comics, collectibles, all kinds of fun stuff, and we do it in a fun way. So I enjoy you guys. Hopefully, you new subscribers check it out. What Matters says,
and I'll read what. I want to give a special shout out to you guys and Gary and say Star Wars is dead. Star Wars is dead. MCU. Repeat the same thing.
Yes.
Amen.
Hell yeah.
Amen. Thank you, What Matters.
Till it gets through. Hey, it's not even me anymore. It's out. It's out in the Matrix, and other people are saying it.
Yeah.
It belongs to them.
The reason that it's out in the Matrix and they're saying is because it works. It's true. It's the way it is. So
if it bothers people, good.
Yeah. Change it. Yep. It needs to be changed. And that's how we find out.
The thing is, I've for the last, 9 years, every year I have to recycle this. And I talk to my friends who are outside of our world, our little ecosphere. And I'm like, if I told you in this 2016, 2017, if I told you Ghostbusters was dead 5 years ago, you'd tell me I was an idiot. And then Ghostbusters 2016 killed it. And then if I told you Star Trek would die, you just keep adding to it and adding to it. And you're just like, oh my God. And I think Red Letter Media says it best. You know, what's it like watching all of your franchises burn? It's wonderful. You know, it's for some people, they want to watch it burn. Yeah. For others, it hurts us. It hurts our soul. We built so much of our soul.
Well, and the way we've dealt with it on YouTube is we mock it and we make something fun out of it. So now, like when the Rings of Power comes out, everybody was going for the memes and the comment section and to roast it, and because it was so predictably bad. And the major difference here is you're dealing with particularly with Amazon, $1 trillion company who has every fucking resource in the world. They have no excuse to fail at this. Absolutely none. And they fail worse than some kid in his fucking garage with a number 2 pencil can make a better story than these fucking retards. And that's the funny part about it, is they're so self-important, and they want to load Tolkien's lore or Marvel lore or everything with their personal messaging because they think it's going to influence the kids. And we're gonna, you know what? We're not going to tell you. We're going to tell you what you need to hear. There's a great line in the beginning of Serenity when little young River Tam says, hey, the government meddles too much. She basically, we're not telling them what to think. We're showing them how. That's Hollywood's attitude. And it's like, fuck you. And you're doing it through shit we love. Double fuck you. And
ruining
I'm going to roast them until I can't roast them anymore. Unapologetically. I don't give a fuck. I don't want the job there. I'm not some industry fucking boy who wants to suck on the industry knob. I don't give a shit. I don't care. I'm having a good time doing it. And if they turn things around, great. Then we all win. Then we get better stuff. And when something is good that comes out, I'll absolutely enjoy
like
it.
Picard season 3. You were the biggest champion of that.
Because it was good. It was objectively good. Some people did, you know what? If you didn't like it, that's fine. Some people just didn't want to like it because Kurtzman's name's on it. That's fine too. I'm not going to hold it against you. I don't care.
And some people were like, it's too little too late, but I don't think it is ever too little too late. I think there's always a chance for redemption. There's always a chance to allow this stuff back into our hearts because it already has a place there in it.
What do you think about the House of Dragons trailer?
I thought it was awesome.
So did I.
That was great. I fucking loved it. I've watched it like 5 times. And the fact that they came out an hour after the Rings of Power trailer just made it extra good.
See, that's a perfect example. Game of Thrones to me was the greatest TV show. It might have been the greatest thing ever on the big screen or small screen until that final season and some of the second to the last season completely ruined it for me. And I got to the point where I wouldn't even tell my friends that have never seen it to go watch it because I didn't want them to get their hearts broken, how bad it ended. But then House of Dragons came and I'm like, okay, start with House of Dragons. Let's see how this goes.
The season finale for Game of Thrones would happen during the Chicago Star Wars celebration in 2019. And all my staff were huge. And I hadn't watched it. I still haven't watched it.
That's the one Geeks and Gamers went to. It was a historic Star Wars celebration.
It was huge. And they had a Game of Thrones watch party while we're all out Star Wars geeking it out. They had to have their Game of Thrones, and we came back up after the thing was over because we just let them have it. You know, you can have the room and have the watch party, and we came back up and it was just like silent. They're like, I don't know what to think. And I mean, meanwhile, we're at Star Wars Celebration. That's like Mecca for Star Wars nerds, and they just were so deflated because of it.
Yes. And the fact that House of the Dragon, like knowing it's in that world, still turned it around. And actually, in the beginning, major spoiler from Winds of Winter, which I thought was good. We've waited so fucking long from the book. Give us something.
Yes.
And they gave us something. And I know George did that delivery, but it was fucking huge. Yeah. And if you want to know what it was, the Valerian dagger, that stupid Arya kills the Night King. By the way, Arya is not going to be killing a Night King because there will be no Night King in the books if they ever finish it, was etched on by Aegon the Conqueror. Yep. And we found out why we never knew why he conquered Westeros. The Targaryens were on Dragonstone for 100 years and they had dragons they could have conquered whenever they want. And all of a sudden, Aegon had a dream. He had a dream about the Long Night returning. And that's the reason he conquered Westeros, to become the protector of the realm. A noble. And what George does is he turns that fantasy thing on its head. Like, that's a very noble cause, but we don't know when the prophecy is going to happen. And we don't know how good his line is going to be and how good his descendants are going to be. And they all turn to shit. So the question is, we found out that was known by the Targaryens and it was passed on a generation, but obviously that broke at some point.
Yes.
And nobody knew it.
Yeah.
But it also might explain the Mad King. So everybody thought that Bloodraven was in the Mad King's head and he made him mad. No, I think the Mad King found out about that prophecy and
lost it.
And he was going crazy anyway and lost it. And that's why he's saying burn them all.
See, that was my favorite. What you just went through. Yeah, what you just went through was my favorite part about Game of Thrones, especially right as like the last two seasons, before the last two seasons, when everybody's going, "Oh, I think this is the gonna happen." And I remember at one point everybody's like, "Jaime needs to be the guy that the prophecy is about, and he needs." And they fucked that up by not making that. To me, one of the coolest things that a writer can do in a storyline, and it's one of the major tropes of writing a story, is the character that you hate in the beginning is that through the story told with that character, that becomes your favorite character. It happened with
Wesley and Angel season 5, dude. Like the character arc, and it was there for Jaime. They oh, you're so right. They fucked that one up 5 ways to Sunday. I never expected, like, Jaime should not have lived ever, but he should have died. They got too into the George trope where we're like, well, all the heroes have to be maimed or injured or die. They all have to be maimed. No, you have to actually deliver on that. And I think that's the problem George has, is like,
well, that's what Kirkman did in the comic
with
book,
Negan. Yes.
And then undid as executive producer of the TV show.
They screwed that up. And I think that's why he got so pissed. But Coop just
intersectionalism has fucking ruined everything, by the way. So
yeah,
that's what's behind that.
Coop just dropped a $10 super chat. He says, Tolkien or Robert E. Howard? ? I want details, Gary. You're biased. Lol.
I'm biased. Robert E. Howard was first building a fantasy world, technically, because he published it first. Tolkien was dreaming it up as a child. You're asking me to pick between children, so I'll just say it depends on the day. But I'll favor Tolkien over Robert E. Howard. But Robert E. Howard is a fucking writing god.
Yeah,
a writing god. The only thing is he killed himself, and Tolkien didn't.
Yep.
So Tolkien was the stronger man. The stronger man.
And John Milius never made Lord of the Rings.
No, he didn't.
Well,
but man, I like that Conan movie. I do. I love the shit out of it. Well, but actually, the Conan, the Savage Sword of Conan magazines are the shit. They are so good.
Yeah.
Well, everything Marvel allowed to happen during that magazine period was amazing.
Oh shit!
I mean, you all the kung fu books. They had Master Kung Fu.
I could be here all night talking about how they fucked up Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi should have been a rated R movie.
Yeah.
But I've got to go. I do.
Yes. Hey, thank you so much, Gary. I definitely want to have you come on another time, and we're going to get you set up with a comic book store that you can totally relive all of this.
Oh boy, I could get into, as long as I don't have to deal with Diamond or Marvel or DC, and
2 years Diamond free, baby.
No, you can make Junior deal with it. You could be the dad sticking back and going, "This is how I used to do it in my day," and Junior
showing
can
him
deal
how
with
to
all
take
that
down
stuff.
collections and to price them out.
Well, I can open one tomorrow.
Yeah,
I can open a store tomorrow. Well, maybe not. We have to inventory the books first, but
Well, we need to have that happen. One last final super chat before you leave. All FYI, Bob with the $10 says, "All hell, Gary. Remember, Miles Morales is Miles Morales, and Spider-Man is Peter Parker. You serve the best engagement crack. You are the engagement crack kingpin." Amen. Amen.
Engagement cracked. Well, hey, it's easy to do when you tell an objective truth.
Yes,
they literally are setting up. Probably 75% of your videos are set up like a T-ball.
Yeah, you gotta.
And you're making money off of Twitter doing it now. So, amen.
Well, yeah, a whole $1,000 a month for doing stuff I would do for free and have done for free for the longest time. So I enjoy doing it. The Miles Morales thing, it's a great thought experiment because it does trigger the shit out of people, and I get the worst comments on it. And I'm just saying, Are you saying he's not Miles Morales? I'm not saying anything other than Miles Morales is Miles Morales, and it triggers a lot of
and it's amazing. Just
a lot of people who need a little more in life.
Yeah.
Nobody had a problem with Jon Stewart being the temporary Green Lantern. That ring transfers. Nobody had a problem with. I had so many people not have a problem with Jane Foster until they tried to keep Jane Foster as Thor and have Donald Blake Thor or whatever they it's a matter of tossing away
history,
the old for the new.
Yep. Many years of history that many fans have loved over the years. So
thank you so much, Gary.
Adios, brother.
I'll see you in your chats.
Take it easy, guys, and let's talk again soon.
Sounds
All
good.
right, brother.
Hail chat.
Hail the chat.
Amen. Thanks, brother. That was awesome. That was super cool. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us. That was an A+ episode for me, a Grail episode. We've done that a couple of times now on Industry of Comics. We've had in the 15 or 16 episodes we've had of Industry of Comics, I've had 5 people on that have been bucket list people, and I can't thank Dennis and Jesse enough for making the show a great show. And also everybody out there that watches it and enjoys it. Thank you for everybody that commented on the last 2 shows. We've had great comments about the John Tyler Christopher show and the last show with Nick Barucci jumping in. Just as many great comments. So congratulations to everybody that won.
And it just goes, Brian, I just want to say one thing. So he didn't know me from Adam when he met me 2 years ago in Dallas. They invited me to pop over for one of the little meetups, and the secret to who I bring on the show and I bring to you and Jesse is if I can have a 1-hour conversation with them, having a smoke outside of a bar or whatever. That's exactly what my first time meeting Gary was like, and we just had that tonight. For 2.5 hours, I mean, that's insane. I mean, the guy's already done 6 hours of streaming all day today.
And he said he loves every minute of it, which is even better.
So much gas left in the tank too.
Yeah. We tried to get him out of here probably an hour ago, and he's like, nope, we're going to keep going, which I love that. And man.
But but when you have this passion for what we love, it's so genuine, guys. The chat, thank you so much for feeding it. We're just gonna keep bringing people on that we love having conversations with, that I hope you guys love listening to.
Yeah. And we're gonna end it with one more thing, talking about Superman being a dick. I think this is the biggest dick Superman's ever been.
Oh, I know.
Action Comics. Oh, that's a rough one.
Somebody had to know.
Much love, you guys. Come hang out with us tomorrow night, House of Stein, for the Hot 10 Comics show on House of Stein YouTube. Saturday night, Modern Comic Mayhem, right back here on Beyond Wednesdays. We'll see you there. Peace.